In a bright green valley ringed by towering mountains, a spotless white dragon dives down and flares its wings wide. Then the other dragons, all in blazing green, pink, and orange, rush in and lock eyes on the newcomer. The story snaps to a glowing, magical circle carved into the ground, and a young woman with long, light blue hair strides in and declares they've arrived in the Dragon Kingdom, while a young man stands there, stunned, as the great white dragon rumbles, confirming they've finally reached their destination. Man Raider leans forward, eyes blazing with pure excitement and awe, while the woman steps in to formally welcome him, like she's just kicked open the door to his brand new life as a dragon tamer. Stands beside the blue-haired woman with a calm, satisfied smile, and yeah, this is the kind of story where doing good comes back to bless you. The scene snaps to the divine dragon empire, Lazeria, where, high above the grand capital, the Dragon Knight Corps storms the skies on draconic mounts, standing watch as the nation's ultimate line of defense. Right there in that same country, in a rough, rustic stable, a massive dragon sprawls in its stall, resting like a sleeping nightmare. Raid drops to one knee beside the creature, eyes dark and focused, and spots the dullness in its scales. Then he feels it. Something's wrong inside its organs. He shouts to the dragon, Faye, demanding to know if it's been burning itself out on the latest deployments. In this world, people carry special powers called skills, and Raid's family has been passing down the dragon tamer skill for generations. The dragon snaps one eye open, and Raid realizes it. Right away, the beast has clocked his ruined state. With his dragon tamer skill, those roar thunders don't just echo out, they blaze inside his heart as clear voices. Raid serves the Empire as a dragon caretaker, but he knows the Dragon Knights keep squeezing the creatures until they're running on empty. And this is the third time they've been reckless like this. Rage kicks in, his fist tightens, and he declares he's done swallowing it. He's going straight to the higher-ups. As he storms off, Faye's warning rattles in his head. Saving them only traps him deeper, and somehow he's branded a salary thief. Raid's sighs boils him over as he overhears two knights sneering that it must be sweet pay just to pet dragons. Then they blame him for their awful condition and promise to march straight to his majesty to report his negligence. He shrugs off their taunts and keeps working, pouring a supplement into a bucket of water, while a calm thought settles in. This is just how it's always been, and it can't get under his skin. He hands a special potion to one of the sky dragons, praying it eases even a bit of its suffering, and the worry on his face weighs like stone. His mind slips to the sky dragons his family cherished and handed down, and dread claws at him. Because if this keeps going, the whole legacy is going to burn out under the Dragon Knight's demand, and everyone's going to get worked to ruin. The dragon senses his panic and snaps into action, telling him to stop chewing on it, because no matter how hard he tries, it'll all be for nothing. That sudden advice hits him like a wave, leaving him stunned for a split second. Just as he's about to finish his quick back and forth, the stable erupts. Other dragons shout his name. One begs for his homemade potion, another demands fresh straw bedding, and the third just wants to chat, even though everyone knows he's got work to do. He rakes a hand through his hair, swamped. About 50 dragons are on his back, and he resigns himself to the grim truth. It's gonna be overtime again, clocking out at midnight. But exhaustion melts into a shaky, determined smile. His devotion to those creatures outshines every ounce of fatigue. With renewed fire in his chest, he charges back to work, hauling fresh straw for the sky dragons and uncorking bottle after bottle of his deadly special potions. After burning through the whole night, he slumps, completely wrecked. Then a court official bursts in and barks his name, saying the emperor himself wants him now. They march him straight into a massive throne room, and he drops to his knees before the 37th emperor of Lazeria. An attendant shouts his name, Redryzen, and orders him to bow to the emperor's presence. From his throne, the emperor stares down at the kneeling young man. Then, without a shred of ceremony, he calls Raid by name and announces that, effective today, he's been dismissed. He froze in total disbelief, and the emperor's words kept booming through the massive throne room. He tried to blurt out a protest, stumbling over his words, but the emperor snapped him shut, booming that the nation's sky dragons were obedient and that anyone could raise them, calling Raid nothing more than a salary fee. Raid snapped his defense, saying those dragons weren't docile at all. They only obeyed because his dragon tamer skill let him reach out, bond with them, and earn their trust. The emperor just leaned on his throne with a stone-face expression and brushed the whole thing off as pure foolishness. A man near the throne spoke up. If they wanted to burn cash on an idiot like Raid, they'd be way smarter to buy new sky dragons. Then the emperor nodded, and the advisor's furious refusal to even imagine talking to dragons sent Raid reeling in pure horror. Those advisor words kept pounding in his head. Ridiculous. He couldn't forget how many sky dragons got grounded because this fool insisted on taming them. In an empire powered by the Dragon Knight Corps, that kind of ignorance wasn't just wrong, it was unthinkable, even for the emperor and his nobles. The Emperor's voice cut through the air, accusing him of lies and slacking off on his duty, then said these crimes would usually earn a death sentence, yet he refused to sully the Empire's land with the filthy blood of raiders. Instead, he slammed down the final verdict: Raid was going to be thrown out of the Empire. Kneeling on the freezing floor, he clenched his fist tight. He knew deep down this was wrong. His thoughts snapped back to another time, when his late father, a dragon tamer caretaker, and the old emperor were best friends, their bond so strong it ignored rank itself, until the old emperor died out of nowhere. His son took the throne, and the chancellor who served them was cut loose and replaced overnight. The truth hit him like a crushing punch. Then he stared at the emperor, seated high above his court, and everything clicked. They weren't alone in this at all, because every single one of them was in on it together. They seized him and hurled him to the ground, casting him out like he was nothing, and that last cold order kept slamming into his skull: never, ever step onto the Empire's soil again. Beneath the moon, he hurried into the dragon pens and laid a careful hand on that massive snout, then shouted for Faye, only for the great dragon to rise and rumble, demanding what was wrong. Raid could only swallow his panic and apologize for waking everyone. Then he slammed the brutal truth in front of the gathered sky dragons. He'd been kicked out of his caretaker duties for good. He made it clear this wasn't just a shove out the door, it was an official exile, and he'd come only to say his goodbyes. The shock hit hard, but he already knew. The Empire would panic that he might spill secrets about the sky dragons to another country, and pursuers would be on his trail fast. Fake could barely process it. No way this was real. It had to be some kind of joke. The second he said it, every other dragon snapped with rage, roaring for him to break their chains and crack the doors open, then swore they'd help him escape and unleash pure chaos to ruin everything for him. He shot his hands up and demanded they calm down, warning that any act of rebellion would only end with them executed. He told me even if I managed to free them, they still might not make it, because the Empire's anti-dragon barriers will shred some of them out of the sky the moment they try to run. His face crumpled with sorrow because sure, he was thankful for their loyalty, but he couldn't stand the thought of risking them, not when it was those very dragons his father had helped raise. The dragons went silent, their heads hanging low, and one of them whispered, "Does this mean we'll never see him again?" He spun around one last time, wearing a sad yet gentle smile, and thanked each of them for everything they'd shared before wishing them nothing but the best. He strides out of the stables, and those sorrowful sky dragons lock onto him like they're grieving too. Then he clamps his fist tight, swallows the pain, and forces himself forward. He can't stop, not when Faye and the others are still hurting. With that thought burning in his head, he bolts into the night, leaving the Imperial banner miles behind, and he vows through clenched teeth that nothing will stop him from escaping. Elsewhere, a young woman with long, flowing hair leans in and whispers his name, her voice trembling with real worry. His escape caused a stir, and right away 2 Imperial guards heard something. One demanded, "What was that?" while the other shrugged it off and pushed his partner to keep moving, because while they were busy arguing, Raid slipped through the shadows, hood up, perfectly hidden. He pushes into the thick forest, then slams to a stop, because ahead, under moonlight in a clearing, a lone woman with long, pale hair stands waiting. He's instantly stunned by her ethereal glow, like a moonlit fairy walking straight out of a dream, and panic claws at him. Alone in a place like this, monsters are bound to come for her. He freezes, holding his breath, waiting for it to happen. He charges deeper into Walren's great forest, remembering the brutal lessons his father drilled into him on those twisted paths, and realizing this is the perfect trap to shake his pursuers, unless they stick to the exact predetermined route, because then they'll just loop right back to where they started. As he pushes down the path, the mysterious woman pops back into view. Then, when she hears him coming, she snaps around with a startled gasp tearing from her lips. They face off in complete silence, the exiled tamer frozen as the beautiful stranger locks eyes with him like she's hunting answers, leaving him desperate to know who she really is and why her stare is so intense. In a pitch-black forest, Raid stumbled on a mysterious woman glowing like a beacon, her long blonde hair shimmering in the dark. Then his breath caught as he stared, completely hooked, desperate to know who she was. Out of nowhere, a colossal wolf-like monster with razor claws and bared fangs snaps into existence behind her, roaring so ferociously the whole forest shakes. The beast lunges and the woman gasps in shock, then Raid snaps into action, a glowing magical seal blasting into place before his hand as he swears he won't let that monster touch her, and he instantly recognizes it as a high kobold. Leon grips his power tight, calls it a sealing art, then snaps out dragon-binding chains from a blazing magic sigil, and endless light-linked chains explode forward, latching onto the snarling high kobold and cinching it down hard. A searing cry tears from his throat, then he yanks the chains tight, and the magical constructs sink deep into the monster's flesh, locking it down for good. The high cobalt buckles under the crushing force, its neck snaps and dark blood blasts from the wound, while the elf woman, standing safely back, stares in total shock, her face blazing with pure amazement. He pivots to her and shrugs it off like it's no big deal, then drops the truth. His clan perfected these sealing arts to pin down rampaging dragons, and those dragon-binding chains can knock even the mightiest monsters flat in an instant. Then he shifts gears, eyes on her, asking if she's hurt, because a cute girl like her didn't just get saved once, she got saved again, and he can't ignore that. As she closes in, a glowing magical circle erupts beneath her feet, and she tells him it's only natural, he has no idea who she is. She then tells him, maybe you'll remember once I show you my other form. Raid stares back at her, utterly stunned, like he has no clue what's happening. Her power explodes into a terrifyingly advanced kind of transformation magic, one that shrugs off the usual rules of mass and space, so she takes a four-legged body, and then wings burst out and fly independently. She tore open the truth of herself, revealing a majestic white-scaled ancient dragon, the absolute peak of dragonkind, and Raid just stared up, awe-crushing him as a sweat bead slid down his face while he took in every overwhelming inch of it. This thing wasn't even close to the Empire's sky dragons, those were still brand new to everyone. To me, an ancient dragon felt impossible. Then it hit him. Was this monster the same ancient dragon he'd saved 3 years ago? When the thought hit him, the dragon snapped her gaze on him and spoke, her voice rattling with ancient power. She named herself Luna, said she'd come back because she heard about his struggle, and when Raid demanded who summoned her, she smiled and revealed it was the sky dragons he'd raised back in the Empire like family. They were left reeling, staring in disbelief, and Luna finally cracked the mystery. She said they shoved their voices straight into those roars, sending her a message, and they spoke about his character, begging her to grant him the wings of salvation before his pursuers could close in. The clues finally clicked. Ray realized those roaring growls weren't aimed at him at all. They were dragon messages meant for Luna, and he couldn't help but feel awe at how genuinely they'd shown up. Then it hit him, he remembered the words Dragon Princess, and he demanded to know if they were meant for her. A fierce resolve surged in his chest, and if he ever crossed paths with those dragons again, he'd have to thank them with everything he had. She confirmed it, she was the Dragon King's daughter, the real Dragon Princess. Ray went totally silent, stunned, because his father had once warned him that ancient dragons had royalty that could unite all of dragonkind, but he never thought he'd lay eyes on one himself. A grin flickered across his lips as the wild turn of events sank in, because fate really has a twisted sense of humor, and the guy he'd saved by sheer luck 3 years ago turned out to be royalty. Luna told him that when they first met, her throat was swollen from illness, so she couldn't even say how grateful she was. Then she vowed to repay the favor, invited him to come with her to the Dragon Nation, and added that the ancient dragons needed his power, and for Raid, who'd been stuck wondering what came next, that offer lit up his whole future like a beacon. With her heartfelt plea on the line, she bowed that huge head toward him, holding her breath as she waited for his answer. Raid shoots his hand out and grips the ancient dragon's towering, scaled leg, then declares with total certainty that he's counting on her. Beneath the starry sky, she shoots him a quick question, "You ready?" And he answers with a hard, fearless yes. Then her huge wings snap open like thunder, and the whole sky feels ready to launch. Meanwhile, inside the fancy Lazarian imperial palace, the emperor lounges with a goblet in hand, smirking like he's won, thinking that now Raid's huge salary is gone, he finally gets to chase his own obsession, buying even more sky dragons. He takes another sip, smirking like he already knows the people he sent out took Raid down for good. His smug grin instantly collapses when a violent tremor rips through the room, launching his goblet hurtling through the air. With the shaking getting worse by the second, the royal advisor bursts in, sobbing that everything's gone bad grave. The emperor snaps in panic as a nearby decorative urn topples, hits the ground, and explodes into shattered pieces. With his face slicked in sweat and pale as a ghost, the advisor blurts out that this is treason, and when the emperor presses him, he snaps that whatever's stirring up the trouble must be crushed at once, then orders the dragon knights to be summoned immediately. Just as his order is about to be carried out, a churning vortex of dark energy tears open in the heart of the throne room. Energy swirls and roars, then from its depths the dragon's massive head surges up, eyes locked on the terrified emperor. His eyes snap past the intruder to the open sky, and what he sees crashes reality, dragons pouring down onto his palace like a living storm. His mouth opens, and all he can do is stammer in total disbelief. He could only stare in terror as Faye the dragon blasted out a bone-rattling roar that made the throne room itself tremble. The draconic assault hit like a nightmare, smashing straight through his royal guards and scattering them like leaves in a violent storm. No armor, no shield, nothing could stop that brutal power. He scrabbled for control, yelling that he ruled the empire and barking orders for the dragon knights to stop the beasts right now. but the moment he spoke, panic crashed in. The sky dragons were refusing to let the knights even climb aboard. They towered over him, their voice vibrating with ancient power, and they said a dragon's hearing is razor sharp. They'd listened to every whisper inside the castle. Then the beast snapped that the emperor had thrown out Raid, calling it a betrayal of family, and even daring to seek his life. So this fate, this retribution, was declared to be his. With one last bone-chilling order, the dragon bared its maw and blasted a savage gust, sending the emperor crashing backward as his crown tore free and sailed through the air. Outside, the attack didn't slow for a second. Dragons kept diving onto the palace, blasting the air with destructive beams that ripped straight through the imperial walls. Far from all the chaos, it hit Raid like lightning. He finally got it. He'd been the one stopping those ferocious sky dragons this whole time, and now he couldn't shake the question of why. Riding Luna through the night sky, he couldn't shake the pounding question in his head. Why did the sky dragons suddenly lose their minds? Luna's voice cut straight through his thoughts, and she snapped, asking if him coming with her to the Dragon Nation meant he'd picked her as his partner. He froze, caught totally off guard, and could only stammer the answer back. He shot back fast, all flustered, blurting that he wasn't a dragon knight and there was no way he'd ever team up with some ancient dragon, and Luna froze, stunned into silence for a beat. Luna's words hit him like a punch. She told him he'd been taming her ever since he saved her 3 years ago, and now that he wouldn't officially choose her, she felt it was cruel, non-stop teasing. His mind spun with questions, because tame was never gentle. It meant taking a target under your control, and now he couldn't wrap his head around how any skill could possibly force an ancient dragon to submit. A shocking truth slammed into him: 3 whole years, and he'd kept Luna tamed all that time. In her humanoid form, she appeared and told him he'd forced her into that state, chaining her down against her will, even if it started as a byproduct of his healing. He caught the meaning instantly. If the target was tame, it would never dare defy its master. Guilt crushed him, so he blurted out an apology, admitting how terrible this had to feel for her, then begged to free her from the whole mess right away. She calmly said, "No, you won't need to," and Raid froze, utterly stunned by the refusal. He was completely thrown off by her logic. Luna snapped that ordinary humans can't tame an ancient dragon, and since someone like him could do it, she had 0 issues. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling she would have hated it way more. As they kept fleeing, she leaned in and told him the truth. In this calmer form, her flight power spiked hard every single time he rode her back. As her feet hit the ground, she swore her power spikes the closer he is, because if the taming got yanked loose all at once, the weakness would hit fast and hard. With a gentle shimmer, she slipped back into her human shape, stepped right toward him, and started to speak. A soft, unshakable look, she met his eyes and demanded, "Will you take responsibility for what you did to me for the last 3 years?" When she demanded answers, Raid's mind exploded with panic. He couldn't think straight. Then, the moment he shut his eyes, an unshakable wish surged in him. He wanted to stay right by her side. He couldn't stop thinking about her smile, once in her draconic form, once in her elven one, and it had only been 3 years. Then that gentle pressure wrapped around him again, and the idea of refusing her just to watch her grow sad once more felt unbearable. He figured ancient dragons worship strength above everything else, and that had to be the reason Luna, so insanely powerful, could swallow the idea of being tamed by one. After he accepted his role, he followed her straight to a jaw-dropping sky above the Dragon Nation, where other dragons wheeled and soared. She turned back to him, flashed a warm smile, and welcomed him to his partner's homeland. Fresh off the journey, Raid stepped into the land of dragons and stared in pure, wide-eyed shock, while Luna, still in her elf form, swept her hands wide and welcomed him like family, and the other dragons circled them, watching with sharp, burning curiosity. Psyche shoved a dragon into an astonished roar, and its cry blasted through the crowd, announcing that the princess had brought back a human man. The other dragons started whispering between themselves, clocking Raid as the hero from the princess's stories, and noticing how close he'd gotten to Luna. A visibly flustered Luna waved them to silence and marched him straight toward a massive stone entrance. In the dark cavern, a deep voice declared that Luna had come back safe, and Raid, standing right beside her, stepped forward and formally announced his own return to the father, whose shadow loomed from the depths. The darkness peeled back, and there he stood, a colossal white dragon, and its sheer presence slammed the air out of Raid's lungs. The massive beast greeted him as Albern, the dragon king who rules this land, then pointed out that Raid wasn't just a descendant of the dragon tamers, he was the one who saved his daughter. The Dragon King kept talking, telling Raid to finally relax, because he couldn't ignore the person who'd healed his daughter and now cared for the sky dragons across the empire. Raid dropped to one knee and introduced himself, Raid Dyson, then thanked the king for taking him in, acting like the king must already know what was going on. Albern shrugged off the formalities like they were dead weight, then snapped that Raid deserved rest for now, before pointing at Luna and urging her to lead the way. Just before he left, Raid froze, staring up at the towering beast, and with trembling reverence, he asked the Dragon King for permission to touch his scales. As Luna questioned his weird request, he shot his hand out and Albin stayed cool, nodding his consent. Raid quietly thanked him, then, slow and gentle, rested his palm on the Dragon King's scaled hide. The moment her gloved fingers touched his scales, a gentle glow burst from the spot, and Luna's eyes went wide with pure, jaw-dropping shock. She stared stunned as her father's scales snapped back to their brilliant shine. The young man in charge snapped the truth into place. He told the Dragon King he'd noticed his scales didn't shine like other elder dragons, so he feared the magic wasn't flowing right, and he admitted Albern had already seen straight through his plan. With a single touch, the Dragon King's whole body blazed back to life, shimmering with unstoppable power. The great dragon rumbled his thanks, admitting he hadn't been slacking at all. He'd barely had a second to rest his body, and Luna, smiling softly, said it made total sense since Raid was under her watch. He shot back that her words made his heart soar, because that's just the job of a dragon tamer, but Luna still couldn't believe it, staring at the raw power it took to mend an elder dragon's body, a feat that somehow made Ra look almost routine. Her thoughts snapped into a brutal realization and her face went full shock. She admitted that back in the Empire they called her a salary thief, and the label left her totally reeling, the word Raid itself utterly baffling. She clenched her fists, her voice ringing with fresh conviction, saying the Empire had absolutely, brutally underestimated Raid's real power. As they started walking away from the Dragon King, her fury surged. She couldn't wrap her head around what the Empire's leaders were thinking, convinced no tamer in the world was more capable than Rape. The two kept strolling through the valley, a hidden dragon haven ringed by towering cliffs and crawling with other dragons. The resident dragons keep their eyes on them as they pass, their faces split between sharp curiosity and deep, quiet thought. Luna, still in her elven form, sweeps her hand across the place and tells Raid, "This is where you'll live now." He watches her with a soft, warm smile, wishing he could have carved out a home this spacious for Fae and the sky dragons too. When he follows her gesture, his eyes lock onto something unreal, a colossal tree so huge that an entire village of wooden houses and platforms is tucked into its branches, and there, at the roots, the two of them stand small against that monstrous scale. He hauls himself up a towering ladder along the trunk, staring in awe as wonder lights up his face, and when he finally sees all those tiny houses stacked everywhere, he can't help but ask Luna, do any other races live in this country besides the elder dragons? The second he steps onto the wooden platform, he spots them, people with sharp feline ears and curling tails, and he instantly knows it's the Cat Spirit tribe. Luna tells you the Cat Spirit tribe are a mysterious beastfolk people, so close to the spirits it's almost unreal, and yeah, their physical power is explosive, but they can't use magic at all. He takes in the shock and suddenly remembers he'd heard the tribe was already extinct, gone for good, while Luna calls his name and he just drifts, trapped in his own thoughts. Out of nowhere, a cheerful young girl from the tribe, flower tucked in her hair, sprints into view and waves like crazy, grinning wide as she asks what brings them to the village today. Her sudden burst of energy yanks Raid off guard. She's standing right there with Luna, tail twitching like crazy, waiting for their answer. Her eyes blaze the moment she clocks who Raid is. She can't believe she's finally looking at the human in the flesh. Luna slips a hand onto Raid's arm and says, "You're the one I told you about," making the introduction like a spotlight hitting its mark. Rona grins and introduces herself, then rolls out a warm welcome for him, telling Luna she already knew the dragon's nest was too brutal for a human to sleep in, so she's cleared the way for Raid to move into their settlement starting today. She skips up and cheerfully yells at Raid, "Big brother," and it totally throws him off. He stammers, confused at the sudden nickname, then she just checks, "Are you okay?" And he quickly assures her he's fine, he just got caught by surprise. He bounces back fast, grabs her hand, and promises he's excited to be with her from now on. Rowana practically lights up. But as her eyes drop, a worry flickers across her face, and he immediately senses trouble, asking, "What's wrong?" Rona doesn't even bother answering. Her eyes blow wide with shock as she blurts out that he reeks of dragons, like a whole 100 varieties in one breath, and Raid admits he tended the sky dragons all by himself. Luna smiles, satisfied, because her gut feeling about him was spot on. That jaw-dropping revelation hits Raid like lightning. Suddenly it all clicks. The boost that lets him reach targets with magic and physical power has to work even across huge distances. Luna backs him up and she's like, of course, because over the last 3 years her power has surged, and it's all thanks to the fact that he never stops talking about it. As they talk, Rowana locks in, eyes sharp, and murmurs to herself, if Luna's power surged from taming, then maybe Raid's touch could make her stronger too, while right beside her, Raid's hand clenches into a tight fist. Her quiet thoughts explode into a wild plea. She whips around, storms toward Raid, and blurts that she wants to be tamed because she's desperate to get stronger. Raid freezes, baffled, and asks if she's sure. She snaps back that it's okay. Then she explains how her tribe reads someone's character by their scent, and somehow she can tell he isn't a bad person, even if getting tamed means she'll be bound to obey every single command. As she keeps pleading with raw intensity, Raid finally snaps his gaze to Luna for answers, asking why that kid is clawing for power like her life depends on it. Luna's face falls as she spills the truth. A fresh wave of monsters drove the cat spirit tribe out of their homeland, and they had to flee to the land of dragons just to stay alive. Roanna fires back with a fierce shout, confirming every word Luna says, because this is exactly why she's aching to reclaim her homeland, and she's been pouring every single day into training her for. Her resolve screams from the moment she stands there, unshaking, hauling the weight of her entire race on her shoulders. Raid watches, and he can feel the panic underneath her eyes. If a route to faster power opens up, of course she's going to grab it, but deep down, he can't shake the thought that she needs to be way more careful. After hearing her plea, Raid whips around to face Rona and Luna and tells them he gets what they're going through. Sure, he's a dragon tamer, but he straight up warned Rona he can't promise he'll be able to tame it, and she'll have to live with that risk. Rona doesn't even hesitate, she agrees right then. He smirked and admitted her words lit a fire under him. Rona shot back a grin, saying that if she had to choose between handling 100 dragons and dealing with him, this should be the easy part. With their agreement sealed, he stepped up opposite Rona in the huge chamber, snapped his command, and the magic circle unfurled across the floor. Then he unleashed his power and kicked off the taming ritual. As the magic surged, he and Roanna shut their eyes tight and zeroed in, because the spell demanded they tune their very life frequencies together. A blinding flash ripped out of the circle, snapping the whole moment into place, the instant they finally connected. Under a swirl of ethereal light, he launched into the incantation, forging a bond, promising her blood would run as his and her life would move as his. He finished the ritual and snapped shut the unbreakable contract with his last words, and right then, a collar of pure magical energy erupted around Roanna's neck. Once the taming was done, he leaned in and asked how she felt. Rona jerked her hand to her neck in shock, then clenched her fists like, "Yeah, I can feel it. Power's surging through me." She couldn't wait to unleash her new strength. She swore she'd test it right now, then strode up to a hulking wooden post, while he stood there watching with sharp worry, because that branch looked as thick as his own arm. In the blink of an eye, she slammed the post, one clean strike cracking that thick wood like it was nothing. The power on display left Luna wide-eyed, while Raid just couldn't find words, his face locked in pure shock at the insane result. Rona stares at her hand, eyes wide with pure awe as fresh power surges through her, and she whispers, "I get it now," finally realizing just how massive her strength really is. She whips around, eyes blazing with pure admiration, and declares she was right all along, because he isn't just some ordinary guy. Her excitement doesn't even blink. She tells him, "Train with me every time you've got a free second," and swears she wants to get even stronger, and Luna watches the whole moment from just a few steps away. Deep inside a detached palace in the Lasseria Empire, the Emperor broods on his throne as a dire report lands in his lap. Two of his men burst in, panicking, screaming that after the recent rampage, the Sky Dragons have gone totally rogue and refuse to follow the Dragon Knights, leaving the Empire's borders wide open for monster attacks. The Emperor grinds his teeth, furious, and mutters that he already knows what's coming. As rage boils in him, his advisor strides in with a sly little smile and lays out a cold suggestion. Since Raid's body was never found, everyone has to treat it like he's still alive. The advisor leans in and warns the Emperor. Sky Dragons went out of control only after the raid. Then he drops the real bomb. Whoever could talk to them has already abandoned the Empire. So he urges the Emperor to hit them with the raid again and bring him back to shut those dragons up for good. Then he leans in with a sly smirk and needles him, asking if His Majesty really buys the wild claim that Raid can talk to dragons. The Emperor drops into deep thought and his advisor keeps pushing. Once Raid has calmed those dragons, they'll swoop back in and take control, cutting Raid out entirely. Then it hits the Emperor like lightning, and his eyes blaze with understanding. With his mind made up, the Emperor roars the order to the guards, "Go hunt Raid and haul that salary thief straight back to the Empire, where every coin he stole will be repaid with hard labor." As the command leaves his mouth, a nasty grin locks onto his face, and he stews in secret that Raid still made him bow his head, even if it was just for show. While the Emperor's malice simmers somewhere out in the distance, Raid stays totally unaware. He just pats the smiling Rowan on the head like it's nothing. Then a grim thought snaps into place, and a vow hardens in his chest. One day he'll pay back his old suffering by taking the Emperor's head. In a world where dragons rule the skies, Raid slowly finds his footing in this wild new life, hanging out with colossal beasts and living right alongside the cat spirit tribe. As a glowing bottle thudded onto the ground, he stood there with a potion he'd brewed himself while everyone else watched in awe. Potion in hand, he leaps onto the injured dragon's back and warns it the medicine will sting, then tells it to just endure it. He pours the liquid right onto the wound, and the elder dragon snaps out a pained grunt, jerking away like it burned. The cat spirit tribe hauled everyone together to thank him for what he'd done, and they told him the truth. Most of their mana is poured straight into beefing up their bodies, so brewing potions is a brutal struggle. Then they handed him the potion like a heartfelt little gift, thanking him for the food, clothes, and shelter he'd provided. On a beam, sure that with Big Brother Raid watching over, the dragons will finally be safe, but Luna, staring at them, feels the sting of how long it's been since anyone praised her work, and when emotion crashes in, she snatches Raid's hands and begs him hard that she really wants to stay in this country forever. Guys shine as she vows that they'll all lend him their strength too, and Raid locks eyes with her, his face snapping into a brand new kind of determination. He stares at their intertwined hands, and then boom, this soft smile cracks across his face. He knows, no doubt, that Luna is his partner, and he thinks he should finally stop running and settle here for good. Later, as they stare out over the landscape, Luna's smile drops and seriousness hits hard. She tells him monsters have been surging lately, creeping closer to the Dragon Nation, and Raid snaps that her fear is right on the mark, the exact thing that's been worrying him. Just as his thoughts start to spiral, the elder dragon he healed storms back into his mind, thanking him again for the potions and brushing off its injuries as nothing but scratches. Then the vibe drops hard. It warns him that monsters are closing in on the elder dragons for the first time ever, a sign so dangerous it makes Raid's worry sink deeper with every heartbeat. He stared at the weight of his debt to the Dragon Nation and decided right then he'd do more than just help, he'd fight for its people. With a confident grin, he declared his game plan. He'd personally hunt down and tame every big monster lurking nearby. His declaration hit the room like a punch, and both Luna and Roanna froze in stunned silence. True to his word, he marched Luna straight into the forest. Then, boom, a massive winged monster sat in the clearing like it owned the place, and Luna could only gasp in pure disbelief. The griffin beast snapped its head around, and those razor-sharp eyes locked on, glaring pure hostility. Luna, now with Rona by her side, challenged his whole plan to tame every monster, and Rona shot back that wrestling beasts is nothing like battling them, because even griffins can shrug off taming magic with sheer, crushing power. He brushed off their worries with a calm grin, told them, "Don't sweat it," then stepped forward toward the creature like he owned the moment. The dragon tamer strode forward, cloak snapping in the wind as the griffin locked onto him with a ruthless, predatory stare. Before the beast could even blink, he shot his hand forward, and a glowing magical sigil snapped into existence in midair. Then he declared it was already too late for the beast to run. He called on his sealing art and snapped the dragon-binding chains into place. Glowing shackles burst from the sigil and trapped the griffin's leg in an instant. He finishes the incantation and vows to link himself to the creature, declaring, "Its blood will be mine, its strength will be mine," as the magical chains rocket forward and clamp onto the griffin. Lighty chains snap together around the griffin's neck, blazing into a glowing collar, as he seals that unbreakable contract right here and right now. Once the contract is sealed, the light dies down, and that fierce griffin flips instantly, going soft as a lullaby. It strolls right up to Ray's hand, nuzzles him gently, and lets out a cozy little contented sound from its beak while it chills calmly at his side. He whips around and shouts that the taming worked, telling his companions they can come out, and right from their hiding place in the woods, Luna and Roanna step forward. Luna's jaw drops as she realizes he just subdued a griffin like it was nothing, straight out of a dragon tamer's legend. Shock slams in when he casually says he tamed tons of griffins during training, and the revelation leaves every last one of them totally speechless. She barrels into him, snapping that his moves are reckless because even elder dragons have trouble with monsters like that, and then she fires the big question. So what's his plan now? Drive it off. He stays dead calm and says he won't. Rona's simple denial leaves him stunned and confused, so she presses him for answers. Raid finally spills the truth. He's ordering the griffin to stand down and not challenge the Dragon Nation. Still, she can't wrap her head around it, so she fires back. What's the point of taming it then? He leans in and explains. Griffins don't just roam, they claim territory, and other monsters instinctively steer clear of those zones. The meaning of his words hits Luna like thunder. If that griffin pledges itself to them, it'll stand guard over the whole region. And when Ray sees her get it, he decides that if the creature is going to call this place home, it's going to need a name. He stares down the magnificent beast, then boldly declares, "Fawn," and the griffin erupts with a thunderous cry, wings flaring like it's finally claiming its new name. Fawn, freshly named at last, erupts into the sky and Raid steps in, calling out as he formally introduces himself. Once his first guardian is locked in, he whips around to Luna and Rona, who roar their support, then drops his massive ambition. He's going to tame every large monster near the Dragon Nation, using the exact same method. Raid didn't just talk, he delivered, and he did it in shockingly little time. After catching his breath between fights, he swept up and tamed 20 huge monsters in half a day, and now they patrol the borders of the Dragon Nation so tightly that other monsters pushing in is nearly out of the question. For that huge win, the Dragon King didn't just smile. He handed Raid a reward that was downright unreal. A mountain of treasure, a monthly paycheck worth 100 gold coins, and a fortune so massive it felt unbelievable. In the Lazarian capital streets, folks huddle and whisper while the Imperial Sky Dragon's patrol roars overhead. And the buzz is all about the caretaker the Imperial Court just kicked out, with everyone quietly linking his disappearance to the monsters getting closer and closer to town. Even the military can't escape the unrest. Inside a tavern, two knights sink into bitter complaints about their shattered forces, warning that the Sky Dragons, pushed with harsh techniques, are right on the edge of breaking. And to make it worse, their healing potions are running dry, something they never had to worry about when Raid was around. Square, the alchemist, raises a vial like it's a miracle, eyes wide, mouth agape, because what's inside is a healing potion of equality he can't copy, can't even understand, and nothing like it has ever crossed his workbench. Then it hits him hard. The exiled dragon caretaker must have made it, and with that discovery, he can practically feel storm clouds gathering over the kingdom's shores. In the middle of the chaos, the Emperor of Lazaria finally crumples in his throne room, his frustration blazing on his face as he's forced to admit, even if it's only to himself, that the last caretaker was unbelievably skilled. Brooding gets cut off the second an Imperial guard crashes into the chamber. He slams down urgent news. They've found Raid's location. Based on the traveler's account, Raid has already vanished into an unexplored region. He bursts into a malicious grin, triumph surging through him. Then he finally snaps, telling his carriage to be readied at once, as he declares he'll personally lead the hunt to catch the one he's calling a salary thief. His mind races with brutal plans. He's set on ripping Raid apart, stripping every healing potion recipe and dragon control technique out of him before he finally strings him up on some fake, made-up charge. Bursting into the open air, he roared with full confidence. This Raid won't slip from his grip. Meanwhile, way out there, the Emperor's target finally hears the news. Raid stands cool in a potion-filled workshop. Rona and a dragon looming behind him, cracks open a vial, turns to ask one thing. Are you sure? The Emperor and his men are coming to grab me. Anna, still in her elven form, delivers the answer with a grave face, telling them the Imperial Sky Dragons roared out the whole truth, so there's not a shred of doubt left. She stared at the Emperor's brazen choice, because the Lazarian Empire had an ancient pact with the dragons, no interference in the unexplored region, and she couldn't stop wondering if he'd really shrug off a tradition his ancestors had protected for generations. Her worry hit like thunder. Raid, sure he'd caused her pain, thanked her for the heads up, then decided he had to quit the land of dragons before he brought any more trouble down on her and the others, but Luna snapped, "Wait." Just as he was about to bolt, a calm voice stopped him cold. "Don't carry this weight by yourself." Then a man with long, light hair and a goatee stepped into view, and Luna instantly knew him as her father. Raid's jaw dropped when he realized that the Dragon King, Alburn, stood right there in human form. Then Alburn declared Raid an official resident of their kingdom. Rona's declaration sparked instant support. She blurted that she'd back Raid the second he hit trouble, and a nearby dragon chimed in that they owed him everything since monsters stopped attacking them because of his actions. Then Alburn stepped up to the crowd, making sure everyone got just how serious this really was. Luna pressed a hand to her chest, visibly shaken by their loyalty, and snapped that she couldn't stand by while the person who saved her life was facing danger. Then Alburn's face hardened as he declared their answer. They would repel the Divine Dragon Empire. He rallied dragons and beastfolk alike, his booming voice ripping into the madness of banishing someone just to turn around and drag them back by force. Then the whole crowd erupted in one thunderous roar of pure agreement. Meanwhile, the Emperor's expedition barreled forward, his fancy carriage riding the sky, while a squadron of dragons flanked it, blasting straight toward the unknown lands. Inside the carriage, the Knight Commander grilled one of the Sky Dragons, because it had suddenly obeyed the Dragon Knight's control techniques like nothing happened, even though just the day before, it wouldn't listen to a single word. Lazaria's Emperor sat nearby, sneering like he'd won, and demanded, right to the air, where Raid was hiding, promising brutal payback for dragging him this far. Then a sharp scream ripped through the silence from outside. Turned out the sound wasn't from some dragon at all. It was a giant griffin, yanking against its harness, wings hammering the air as it hauled the Emperor's heavy carriage through the sky and shrieked pure, furious pain. The creature explodes forward, its talons ripping into the Emperor's carriage, and the monarch gasps in shock, because he can't believe a griffin is actually here. The impact slams the carriage hard enough to snap its axle clean in two, and the whole rig stutters toward the cliff edge, while the Emperor's eyes bulge with raw terror as the ground drops out from under him. He gets hurled off the plunging carriage, but before he hits the ground, a griffin streaks down and clamps him in its crushing talons. Helplessly dangling, the Emperor roars for the dragon knights to rescue him from sheer doom. Up in the sky, Raid and his crew stare down at what happens next. Roanna checks with Albern and makes sure they kept Raid's orders, no touching the Emperor's life. Then, way below, the griffin drops in and its talons let the carriage go. The monarch is sprawled out on the ground, rattled to the core but miraculously uninjured after that terrifying crash. He snaps his head up and spots Raid looming over him, while the Emperor, finally brought low, pants and stammers that he's sorry, begging Raid to return to the Empire with him, but Raid pauses just long enough to listen before cutting the offer off cold. His mind snaps straight back to the day they kicked him out. He still hears the Emperor's voice, screaming that his reports were lies and his duty was ignored, and then the sentence lands. Not death but exile with no way back, forever banished from the Empire. That memory claws fuel into his resolve, his face hardens as he speaks in final iron terms. No matter how the Emperor words the request, he'll never serve him again. His refusal ignites a fury in the Emperor. He jabs a trembling finger and roars for his dragon knights to slaughter the insolent fool. Knights charge ahead, but the moment they surge forward, the land's dragons slam the road shut. Then the sky dragons burst free of their restraints, and Albern roars an order. Everyone join the fight. As the Imperial forces closed in, a wild geometric pattern erupted inside one of the dragon's eyes, so shocking it sent a bead of sweat racing down the Emperor's face. He was completely boxed in, dragons of every kind, wyverns, drakes, and ancient beasts closing in until they formed a brutal wall of scales and snapping teeth. Low, guttural growls rolled through the clearing, one brutal, united warning aimed straight at the monarchy. The Emperor barked at Raid to stop right now, roaring that defying his command was treason, plain and simple. His accusation didn't land with fear, it bounced right off a calm, peaceful smile. Raid just looked him in the eye and said, "Since they exiled me from the Empire, I'm no imperial subject anymore, so calling it treason doesn't fit." The Emperor went utterly speechless, then his shock curdled into terror as Luna, the ancient white dragon, towered over him in sheer, colossal shadow. Sensing her protective rage, Raid slid a gentle hand onto her snout, murmuring that he was okay and begging her to cool off. One touch, one calm voice, and the ancient dragon's fury finally crumpled into silence. Seeing that, the Emperor snapped into desperate command, real proof that Raid could truly talk to dragons. He barked for Raid to make every one of them accept the Dragonite's orders and serve the Empire, then warned him. Refuse and Imperial folks would get swallowed by the monsters closing in. Raid stood there torn in half, weighing the brutal choice between defying them or saving everyone who'd be devoured. He spun toward Faye and the others, told them the Emperor's demand, and demanded their take on it. Faye thought it over and shrugged, saying they didn't mind shielding humans because they'd been doing that for ages. Raid looked inward at his soft heart, stunned that Faye and the others were even willing to treat a monster like him with kindness. Then he snapped out loud with his answer. He and his people couldn't stomach obeying the current Emperor, because if they were forced back into that old routine, the dragons would get hammered again until sickness finally took them. He whips around to the Emperor, still blazing atop his dragon, and tosses out a bold counterproposal. He throws down his terms. He'll craft better treatment plans for the Imperial Sky Dragons, and the Emperor has to swallow them whole. Then he demands a vow, no more hunting him, no more meddling in that unexplored region. The Emperor laughs it off, calling Raid nothing but a mere salary thief, the kind he'd never listened to. The Emperor snaps back with arrogant refusal, and right there, a blinding flash erupts from the ground, ripping into a massive explosion right after. The blast's shockwave rips the Emperor out of his mount, and he crumples near a brand new smoking crater, gasping, coughing, and dazed. When he cranes his neck, a figure bursts into existence inside a blazing magical seal. Then a nightmare memory crashes down, revealing a silver ancient dragon that can wear a human body, and the Emperor's face drains as he finally understands exactly who he's about to face. The figure's face snaps into clear view, and those piercing reptilian eyes lock on tight. Then he introduces himself, Dragon King Albert. He grabs the Emperor's attention with an old pact from long ago, one forged with the Emperor of the Divine Dragon Empire, and now the current ruler has shattered it by marching troops straight into his sacred lands. He keeps laying into them, and behind him his real dragon form towers like a nightmare. Albert then flat out says that if Raid hadn't jumped in to stop him, the Emperor would have been wiped out, turned to dust. The Emperor's perfect calm snaps like glass, and he crumples into helpless, terrified sobs he can't even control. After the confrontation finally settles, a brand new deal clicks into place. Raid sprints out of the forest beside a humbled Emperor in Rona, securing tougher, better treatment plans for the Sky Dragons. Later, he sits down with Luna to hash out the terms, and she practically beams, thanking him for everything. But the new rules hit hard. The breath attacks get capped to stop the dragons' bodies from getting wrecked, and the dragons have to eat more and rest longer. He strides off with Luna, waving the cat spirit tribe like, "Come on, don't be so formal," and he loudly credits their win to the whole dragon country and to Luna. Right behind them, Rona's face twists with disappointment, because she'd been dying to jump into the fight herself As he strides along, he lets out a breath of relief in his own head. Rona and the others never gave themselves away. He knows one glimpse from the Emperor of that rare cat spirit tribe would have torn everything apart. He stares straight ahead, confidence blazing through his chest, and finally realizes the Empire can't chase him anymore. Meanwhile, out on the paved streets of a quiet little town, something new suddenly creeps into the world. Light, deliberate footsteps thunder across the stone, echoing like a warning. The sound comes from a young girl, right off her lips. Shimmering, ethereal bubbles start floating out one after another. Wearing a white hooded cloak, the mysterious girl sprints down a long stone corridor, and a trail of bubbles pops up behind her with every step. Up north in the snowy Dragon Kingdom, the Idru Kingdom sprawls below like a secret on the wind. So Raid and Luna, soaring in her dragon form, lean over from a sky-high perch and stare straight down at the royal capital, where Raid grins and declares, "We're almost there." What? He figured the safest move was to press forward on foot so they wouldn't yank attention their way, because with ancient dragons and cat spirits around, one wrong step could spark a whole commotion, and Luna, perched right behind him, gets it and nods right along. In a soft touchdown on the snow, Luna kicks off her transformation, right as a glowing magic circle blooms under her feet and she shifts into her humanoid form. She instantly shivers and sneezes a little, and in her human form the cold hits way harder than she ever expected. Feeling that sting of discomfort, Raid thrusts a warm garment into her hands and tells her to take it, and Luna blinks up in shock, because she's already borrowed extra clothes from the cat spirits. A few days after the Emperor's attack, the whole crew, yes, even Rona, walks side by side again, and Luna, in that cloak now, shoots him warm smiles and blurts out, "Thanks, I feel way better." The journey pushes deeper into the snow-choked woods, and they march straight for Falca, the royal capital of the Idru Kingdom, because they're hunting ingredients for potion making. Rona can't contain herself. She bursts out, screaming how pumped she is. Luna leans in and gently warns her, telling Roanna not to get swept up, because as tamed beings, they're made to stay by Ra's side and guard him. Rona beams and agrees, while Luna quietly doubts they're just here to play with Raid, and before long the three of them march up to the huge stone gates guarding the capital. Inside, they stumble into a lively city that feels alive in every breath. Luna's jaw drops at the non-stop buzz. Rona then spots a huge, feathered beast and straight up asks Raid if monsters like that are really allowed. Raid grins and explains it's a Cymurg, cold-resistant support for the kingdom. Then he hits her with the real kicker. He learned all of this from his earlier jobs for the Empire, and Rona can't hide how impressed she is. He clocks Luna's flushed face as she blurts out an apology. She'd totally gotten sidetracked by the mouth-watering smell wafting from a nearby food stall, so he points over and says, "Those are grilled skewers they're selling." He strides up to the vendor, orders 3 pork skewers with sauce, and yells back to Luna and Rona that he's bringing them some. Luna takes a bite, her eyes flare with pure delight, and she tells Ray it tastes like a flavor they can't find back in the dragon country. Roanna nods along, saying that punchy seasoning is straight up addictive. Right after they finish their snack, Ray leans in and declares, "Come on, let's finish shopping before darkness creeps in." Then the trio barrels through the roaring market, darting between stalls, hunting down every ingredient they need. They hauled a pile of bags loaded with their buys, shouting to the comments that they grabbed way too much. Then, as they slipped down a tight little street, a tiny hooded figure suddenly bolted out of an alley. A hooded kid slams into him, and when the hood slips back, his heart jolts. There's a young elf girl staring up at him, and his eyes lock on the cold metal collar on her neck. The memory hits hard. In the Idru Kingdom, mages and criminals get chained into slavery. With desperation carved into her face, the young elf grabs the collar and begs the group to hide her. Before he can even answer, a voice crashes in from the far end of the alley, screaming for the little brat to stay put, because 2 men just stepped in and sealed their escape route. Trapped, Roanna whips her head toward Raid and asks if they should help the girl. Raid nods, eyeing the brutal faces of the closing men and knowing handing her over would spell disaster. He snapped his hand forward and slammed a magic circle into the ground, then boom, power surged as he shouted, summoning two Simurks and ordering them to tear straight through the pursuers and scatter them. As summoned creatures flood in, their eyes snap open, wide, blazing, and ready to pounce. With a massive whoosh of wings, the birds burst into the sky, making both men jerk back in shock, and Rona pounces on the opening, pushing everyone forward while the pursuers are still thrown off. As the Simurgs spiral down on the fleeing men, he grins. This time, there won't be a single scrap of proof that he's the one in control. Then he lets go and releases the creatures. As he dashes out of the alley, the girl he saved snaps her head up at him, stunned, then asks, "So dragon knights can command creatures, even ones that aren't dragons?" She leans in and blurts out that the woman next to him is an ancient dragon, then wonders out loud if her razor-sharp intuition is something she's born with, maybe a racial trait too, and Raid gets Luna's identity confirmed, but he can't wrap his head around that exact question. As they trudged through the snowy streets, he beamed and set her straight. He wasn't a dragon knight at all, he was a dragon caretaker. They tore themselves away from the confrontation and marched down a broader street, with two locals watching them like they were about to unfold something big. The girl blurts out her reasoning. She'd heard that when everything goes wrong, you run to the Dragon Knights, so that's why she came to him, and Raid just nods like, "Got it, now it makes sense." She yanks her hood back and lets her face shine in full, then she snaps, "I'm Milfy," and explains the truth. People think she's an elf, but she's actually a water spirit, and the moment hits like a thunderclap, stunning the rage. She locks eyes with Raid's doubts and holds her ground. He scoffs that water spirits are extinct just like cat spirits, yet she doesn't blink, swearing she'll bring receipts and prove it. She grants the go-ahead, then cups her hands, and a shimmering sphere of pure water blossoms right between them. Raid freezes, stunned that she pulled it off without any magic circle. That's the real deal, the kind of true magic that isn't sorcery at all. This display screams one huge truth. Sorcery needs a magic circle as a blueprint and burns power to make it work, but magic snaps a mental image into place and bends power straight away, no drain. That rare trick usually only belongs to beings tied to nature itself, like spirits. The truth behind this power hits hard. Milfy isn't some illusion, she's a real spirit. After Raid finally shows up and introduces himself, Luna and Rona locks in on one brutal question. Why the hell is a spirit getting enslaved inside the Agura kingdom? Raid's eyes lock on a collar at Milfy's neck, and the pieces snap together with a click. She tells them she was kidnapped about a year ago by the exact same men they just chased away. After Luna hears her out, she locks in on the truth. Of course, a rare Spiritrace kidnapper would hunt one of them. Milfy must have been sprinting to escape, desperate and breathless, until she finally stumbled into their groove. Once they finally got the full picture, the crew huddled up and argued their next play. Roanna pushed hard to help Milfy, swearing there was still something pure under that stale smell, while Raid pitched a wild idea. Stash her in Dragon Country, and Luna nodded along, saying if they flew her there, their pursuers wouldn't stand a chance to keep up. As they deliberate, Milfy throws a heartfelt plea at them, begging to come along because she's got nobody left to go back to, only desperation in her eyes. Ray steps in, tells her not to fret, and says the last snag is that slave collar. Then he grins and reveals he's already got a plan. He tells her his plan could feel rough, but Milfy doesn't hesitate. She'll do anything if it means she can get that collar off. She nods, and right on cue, Raid slams a magic circle onto the ground and blasts out a surge of power. As his power surges from the circle, he lays out his plan. Both taming and slave collars demand total obedience. So if he hits Milfy with a taming spell stronger than those collars, he can overwrite her master and force her under his control. He starts the incantation for an unbreakable contract, and with every burst of energy, the metal collar around Milfy's neck starts to crack. He grits his teeth and realizes he's still short on magic power. Then the spell bites back, and a sharp cry tears out of him as raw energy crackles around his hands. He shoves his resolve into place, recalling the brutal grind it took to tame an ancient dragon, so this should feel way easier, like a simple walk in the park With one last burst of will, he snaps back that a slave collar is nothing. Then a chain of blazing light erupts around Milfy, crackling with terrifying power. A blast of concentrated power crashes into the collar, and the batwing insignia on its front snaps apart under the sheer force. A vicious jerk clamps her throat as the magical bonds keeping the device together finally snap, and it starts to break apart right around her neck. With one sharp crack, the collar shatters and clatters uselessly onto the ground. Moments later, a woman on the street can't stop staring, stunned by the thought of a dragon tamer who can command ancient dragons, and Milfy, finally free, fidgets with her neck with a burning blush. Across the way, one of their pursuers yells that the search should start right now. He snaps a warning to his partner. Don't you dare underestimate them just because they're kids, because they've clearly gotten farther than you think. As the pursuers creep closer, Rona blurts out why they don't just fly off. but Raid shuts that down fast, telling Luna to whisk Rona and Milfi ahead while he stays put to smash their trackers. Luna shifts into her gigantic dragon form, knowing everyone will stare, but she says it can't be helped. Then Raid grins like, yeah, exactly. Right as the fugitives tried to slip out, the pursuers locked onto their target. One guy snapped, Raid is a dragon knight, and Dread hit hard when he realized once they took to the sky, they'd be damn near impossible to chase. Just moments ago, the whole chase went wild. Raid barreled through an alley with Milfi in his arms, Roanna hot on his heels, while one of the men screamed at the little brats too. Rona wasn't about to quit. She whipped around with a savage grin, yanked up a huge wooden log, and barked at them to grab it with. With one brutal heave, she hurled the log, and it smashed into the ground right in the pursuers' path, jolting them off balance and slamming the brakes on their whole advance. To make sure, Barrier bought them the time they needed. Now Luna carried Raid high above the town, and he stared down at the furious men below, muttering a curse, relieved they got away, but still wired with tension. As they tore through the clouds, Luna declared the trip a win, smiling because they'd finished their shopping and even saved Milfi along the way. Raid couldn't stop worrying about what would happen next, so he blurted it out loud that the Dragon King better not snap at them for sneaking Milfi along without permission, since he truly believes the king is a kind-hearted dad who steps in to help people in trouble. His words felt like trouble, all right, like a storm in the air. She trembled and blurted that she was useless as a spirit, pathetic for getting caught. Then Raid cut in fast, yelling that none of it was true. And since he was one of the rare race too, he was convinced the Dragon King would welcome her. He met her eyes with a soft, steady smile, then told her the truth: everyone starts off weak, and she could absolutely grow stronger from here. He kept his promise, and even as just a dragon caretaker, he swore he'd help her, no backing down. Milfi was so moved she could only stare up at him and breathe his name in a whisper. She slumps against Raid and tells him, I'm a spirit, I feel alive when the air is thick with magic, then pleads, keep that taming spell running. Raid freezes, shocked because he just realized he'd forgotten to let it go. He agrees to her request, then Luna calls his name from ahead, making it clear she's got the situation in hand and will keep the spell running too. Her voice flips straight into urgent mode. She tells him a horde of monsters is closing in on Dragon Country, and his eyes snap wide with pure alarm. He absorbs the terrifying message the ancient dragons unleash across the land in roaring waves, and the leader of the horde claims he's one of the 4 heavenly kings in the Demon King's army. That name hits him like a bell in the dark. Suddenly the legends slam back into his head. The 4 heavenly kings, the Demon Kings, top-tier monsters, the same ones that once tore across the continent and pushed everything to the brink of ruin. And now it clicks, this isn't just a fairy tale, it's real. As he's stuck in thought, Luna leans in and says the Dragon King, and even his own father, may have sensed the Demon King's revival was right around the corner, thanks to the monster attacks suddenly spiking. Rona's face tightens nearby, and the results hit like a punch. She snatches onto a Raid's arm and blurts that she's going with them to help, while Milfi quietly pleads to stay right by his side, trapping him between 2 heartfelt demands. He clenches his jaw and weighs every move. Safer to leave Milfi in the cat spirit village, sure, but what if disaster strikes while he's gone? In the end, he decides, staying close to him is the only way he can truly keep her safe. After he makes his call, he turns to Luna and thanks her for backing him up, then lays out the game plan. They'll swing around behind the coming horde, scope everything out, and only then choose the move. Luna nods like, yeah, that's exactly the right way. He lifted the binoculars to his eyes and the nightmare confirmed itself. Down below, a monstrous horde surged forward without stopping, ogres, wyverns, and a whole pack of putrid beasts like an army marching straight for war. Luna stood beside him, staring into the oncoming tide with a face carved from grim certainty. Their watching gets ripped apart when a bold, confident voice cuts in. Fiery-haired Eru steps into view with a sharp grin, declaring she's one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army, Eru of the explosive flank. She jabbed a finger at the group, her grin locked in place as she snapped out her demands. Hand over the water spirit you stole from the Ijeru kingdom, right now. If they obeyed, she promised them a merciful, painless end. Raid and Milfi could only freeze, shocked, speechless at the sudden hit. Her threat snapped through the air, backed by that confident, knowing smirk, and suddenly, a truly terrifying enemy had stepped right into their world. Right before a hulking wave of monstrous creatures, a woman with reddish-orange hair and tiny wings beside her ears flashes a sharp, toothed grin and declares who she is, Eru of the explosive flame, one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Demon King's army. Her voice slices through the air like a verdict. Raid and Milfi, hand over the water spirit you snatched from the Ijeru kingdom right now. If you do, she'll grant you a merciful death so you can scatter without even feeling pain. That stare drops to 2 tiny shimmering heaps on the ground as his mind clicks into place, and dread hits him. Milfi's the mark. Right beside him, Luna, blazing in her dragon form, confirms it with a fierce nod. Iru watches from afar unseen and thinks to herself that they still haven't spotted her. That raid is already gearing up for a counterstrike, so he snaps orders to Luna to strike fast when the opening hits, trapping the horde with a long-range sealing move, and then blasting them back using air he spits out on his breath. Once the plan locks in, he lines in and demands, "You ready?" Sometime later, in a hush-filled room, Roanna sinks into her thoughts, staring away from a stack of empty bowls as she admits the fight with that demon king for the Heavenly Kings felt weirdly anticlimactic. Luna, stretched out nearby, nods and admits she'd been itching to take them down herself. Then the fight is over in a blink, crushed by Raid's chains and her breath attack. Milphie says the real trick was hitting them off guard, which lets them survive the swarm, and Raid just smiles, satisfied with how it all turned out. Then the talk swings straight to their captive, Iru, now trapped in a cage. Roanna demands to know what they'll do with her, and Raid shoots back that they've got no choice. They'll keep her bound with the sealing technique for now, because they can't risk what Iru might pull if they set her free. Later that night, Raid sits on the edge of the bed while Rona and Milphie sleep, and Luna, locked in her elf form, wraps him up from behind like she's staking a claim. Raid exhales, half annoyed, asking if she's really planning to stay in his room. Luna nods without blinking and says she's doing it to keep indecent troublemakers out. He gets flustered, panicking at the thought that if you're healthy, you're not supposed to juggle this kind of chaos, so he looks over at his sleeping companions, wishing he could wake them up and beg them to step in with Luna, but they're out cold. He couldn't sleep, staring at Roanna and Milphie as they dozed peacefully right beside him, like the universe had finally given them a rare, quiet moment in that cramped little room. Even in the silence, his mind wouldn't stop, because with Lunnan on his other side, sleep was totally out of the question. Elsewhere, deep in a cold stone dungeon, Iru's broken spirit hung in chained misery. Then a skeletal figure in a dark robe shambled in, scythe raised and ready to strike. Suddenly a violent jolt tore through Raid. He sprang upright in bed, and the flash of shattered chains exploded in his mind. A sudden jolt snapped everyone awake. Milphie's eyes went huge with terror as she pointed toward a faraway plume of smoke, stammering that the place was a nightmare and begging Raid not to step foot there. He got her meaning in an instant, and with a fierce, determined stare, he ordered Roanna to take care of Melfi. Without another word, he and Luna bolted outside, sprinting straight toward the source of the disturbance. When they burst in, they saw two skeletal mages locked in place, chanting their spell, dragon-binding chains, to keep the seal going. The moment those mages surged forward, Raid snapped his hand up, a blazing magic sigil flaring as he geared up to counter. Just as Aaron tried to move, the skeletal figures crumpled to the ground, because one of them finally spotted the collar on his neck and understood the problem, way too late. A deafening asterisk crack ripped the air as the magical chain shattered. Iru shot up through the explosive blast, cackling like a lunatic, roaring, "I've revived," as Rage braced his shield against the shockwave. He and Luna dug in their heels as Iru calmly laid out how she broke free, then admitted a Dark Reaper yanked her sealing technique out of the way, and getting past those ancient dragons, eagle-eyed watch was a nightmare. Luna heard her boast and snapped back into her real dragon form. Iru just smirked it off, scoffed that it was pure nonsense, then said she'd already incinerated the skeletal mages with a blast of explosive flames. A massive dragon roared, energy whipping into a blazing ball in her mouth. Then she snarled that Iru would pay, using her very own body, for burning her brethren alive in their homes. She unleashed a brutal blast, but Iru just lifted a hand. Then a shimmering energy bubble snapped into place and sent the attack flying off like it was nothing. The sphere hardened into a cage, locking Luna inside, and Raid froze in stunned panic, screaming her name as the dragons battered at their spellbound prison. He could only stare as Iru taunted the trapped dragon princess, sneering that clawing free was pointless. She even gloatingly explained that the flame cage was built to seal every bit of magical power inside, and that shocking truth hit Lunastani like a gut punch. That implication hit Raid like a hammer. Iru could slam down a flame cage so brutal even Luna's breath couldn't touch it, and she pulled it off without wasting time on a magic circle. Her focus snapped onto him, and crackling energy surged into her hands as she growled that this was the real power of one of the four heavenly kings, even blindsided. Then she pointed at him and said, "Now it's your turn, human." She shot up into the sky, then blasted the ground with a roaring wall of fire, daring him to regret every second he ever dared to trap her in his explosive flames. As the inferno charged straight at him, terror flashed across his face. Then Luna's voice screamed from inside her prison, warning him, and right then a blazing magic circle snapped into existence across his chest. Now he's gripping the source of protective magic in his hand, an elite dragon tamer's sealing technique that can even shut down ancient dragon power. Iru freezes in shock, staring at him like, How can a human stop my flames? From her cage, Luna screams his name, stunned and impressed. Iru finally nods, admits his strength, and swears she'll answer him, calmly. She swears she won't stop until the Demon King is brought back, because her magic is stronger, no question. Then she sees him holding his ground and knows this fight ends right here, with one last technique. Just as she unleashes it, he starts charging the maximum amount of his magic, aiming to dump it straight into the ceiling. He rockets into the air and rips off his ultimate sealing technique, Azure Sky Dragon Encounter ***, and from that orb, chains of raw energy explode outward, slamming toward a shocked arrow. Light chains snap around her arm and gulp down her flames before they can even flare up. She goes wide-eyed as her power gets smothered, and then he clicks. The Fire Dragon Ultimate Sealing Technique doesn't just burn demons, it shuts them down too. With her power sealed tight, he roars at her to surrender. Then the words ricochet back from Iru, dripping pure defiance. She snarls and digs in her heels, fighting with everything she's got as the magical chains clamp down and lock her in place. He gasps in alarm as he realizes she's trying to crush that sealing art with pure willpower, so he yells for her to stop, warning that if she keeps going, she'll burn out and self-destruct from magical exhaustion, making it crystal clear. He's not trying to kill her. His warning gets a defiant smirk back, and she snaps that she'd rather be bound by an enemy twice than ever bow down. Realizing she won't hear a word, he refuses to wait. He'll end it himself before she perishes. He surges forward, and his glowing fists burn with condensed sealing magic. He hurls it like a haymaker. Iru's eyes snap wide with terror, because she realizes she can't dodge the full hit. He unleashes the Divine Dragon Empire's killer move, the dragon-piercing awakening, and drives a fist blazing with binding chain energy straight into his opponent. The hit lands like a thunderclap, ripping a shockwave through Iru, and she gasps, then her eyes flicker as consciousness slips away. She crumples onto the grassy field, completely broken, and Raid looms over her still body as the fight finally ends. Luna closed in on them, and he slung the unconscious Iru over his shoulder like he couldn't wait any longer, his sister's concern roaring through her voice as she demanded to know if he was okay. Then together, they dragged their captive straight to the cave where Luna had been locked up. Inside the cave, he tells Luna this. He didn't just chain Iru, he's crushed her so she can't fight back. Then he turns to Iru and spits out his terms. Answer every question honestly, no rampaging, no hurting anyone, and absolutely no magical power. Pure shock hits Iru, her face floods with a blush, and she squirms in place as she gasps, realizing these invisible chains are stirring up something brand new inside her. She snaps into a provocative pose and shoots him a sharp look, daring him to say what he's really planning, because she's certain his taming talk is just a cover to make her body do whatever he demands. Iru boasts that he can command her body but never her heart. Luna glares in disgust, like this is exactly what she did in the cell. Raid starts to panic, knowing this twisted behavior could corrupt Rona and Milfi, who are now staring at the scene on full. Roanna's rage hits like a bolt. She trembles, explodes into shouting, and admits she gets it. Seducing men is just what a succubus does, pure nature. Then she leans in and snaps at Iru to show a little more mercy. And she delivers a final warning. If Iru dares to try seducing her partner again, she'll make him answer for what happened with that slave collar. The threat explodes into action. She whips a hard slap across Iru's face before anyone can blink. Raid yells at her to stop, saying he still needs to ask Iru something, and that this right here is why he chose to tame her instead of sealing her away. He demands to know why Iru sent her subordinates to snatch Milfi. Rona snaps back, still blazing with rage, that she'll only forgive Iru if she becomes a slave, then quickly backpedals, calling it taming. Iru stays icy calm and lays out her reasoning. Milfi is the last surviving princess of the water spirits, the same spirits who sealed her away years ago. Milfi gasps at that, totally shocked. She honestly didn't know she had royal blood because her childhood memories are all foggy. Then she admits it. Since Iru is her natural enemy, everything she did was just insurance to stop him from sealing her away again. Iru snaps her focus onto the young man, saying it's pathetic to get beaten twice by the same opponent, yet she admits his sealing technique is so brutal it can smother her flames at full power. Then she calls him human male and he shoots back, "No, my name is Ray." Her eyes snapped wide as it hit her. Maybe this guy was the bloodline of that legendary Imperial Dragon Knight who once sealed the Demon King, all while riding an ancient divine dragon. She even bets he's clueless like Milfi about his own heritage, but Raid can only answer one thing: his parents never told him anything like that. He shoves the ancestry rumors aside and admits the truth isn't impossible, but right now he's got bigger fires to put out. He demands that Iru fill him in on the monster surge and the Demon King. Under her breath, confidence turns cold as she asks if he really thinks she'll spill it that easily, calling the Demon King their master, and the terrifying ruler of the underground demon realm. When she refuses, he just sighs, "I get it," and Aru's eyes widen because her mouth keeps moving on its own. His taming power drags the truth out of her. The monsters are on edge because the Demon King's seal has been fading for ages, and now they're thrilled by his power growing stronger. He digests every new detail because the Demon King, sealed by the Imperial Dragonite, has vanished. He remembers the old legends. Back then, the Demon King's power was so massive it almost swallowed the whole continent. And with that spell still clawing at her mind, Arrow snaps that if she'd known where he was, she'd have rushed there herself, leaving Luna blinking like, "Wait, what?" He lays down the mission. If the Demon King is reviving, they've got to track down where he's sealed and lock him away again, before the demon race makes it their problem. Then he digs into Aru for intel on the other Heavenly Kings, and Aru admits she doesn't know what they're doing, but she does know 2 were taken out ages ago, so that leaves just 1 still standing. She snaps his assumption in half, declaring with zero doubt that the last of the 4 Heavenly Kings is a demon whose strength matches the Demon King. Then she drives the point home. If that final king even twitches, not even the land of dragons will stay safe. Raid and Luna gulp down the nightmare, while Aru quietly thinks this is actually good news, because with just 1 elite fighter like her left standing, the group should be able to weather whatever attack comes. After piecing together everything he needs, he snaps his plan to Luna. Right now, they're hunting down where the Demon King's ceiling is. Luna nods instantly, and promises she'll call on the ancient dragons to help them scour the truth. Roanna stepped forward with a look full of purpose, standing there with her crew as she blurted out an apology for the timing, because they were seconds away from a make-or-break mission. Then she leaned in and asked for her big brother Raid, saying she had something she needed. Raid nodded hard, telling her to get the rest out. Then Milphie jumped in too, praising Raid for saving her and even all of Dragon Country, while Raid just sat there thinking about how everyone's fate still hung on him. That plea kicked off a whole new chapter. Rona finally shot a fierce look forward and blurted, "Can we go to the homeland of the cat spirit tribe?" Then she confessed the truth. Someone there needed her help, and she couldn't waste a second. Far above the clouds, Raid and his crew press forward, Raid and Luna perched on a top fae, while Rona, Milphie, and Aru ride in the sky on a ruthless, powerful red-scaled dragon. This place is the young woman's homeland from the cat spirit tribe, and the moment she greets him, she calls him Lord Rage. Mararia finally tilted her head down again, flooding him with heartfelt gratitude for his help. Then she turned and said, "I'm going home," as she started toward the door. He finally gets what it means to fight for your family, because after taming Aru, he learns Mararia's dream: reclaim her clan's guardian sword so her people can survive the invaders. Mararia couldn't win over her stubborn elder grandfather, so now they're racing to the cat spirit tribe's homeland, where demons have taken over, hoping to convince the tribe's leader who once refused to bring it back. And it hit him like a shock too. How could a crew this powerful even have a symbol for a cause like this? Dragon Gerard blurts it out. He never imagined he'd end up coming at all, then quickly figures, if the princess is going, she'll need an escort, and swears he won't mess a thing up. She scoffs at his big boast, basically saying loudmouths are the first to fold, then turns to a worried Milphie and assures her. Gerard is like an older brother to the young ancient dragons, so of course that only gets him even more annoyed. Raid strides right there beside Mararia and fires off a question: what kind of guardian sword is this? She says this heirloom is the cat spirit tribe leader's family treasure, handed down for generations, and legends swear it once crushed a giant demon. As she tells the invasion, the air turns cold, kobolds and minotaurs burst out, then a whole swarm of monsters crashes in, and even a giant 3-headed hydra roars onto the scene. They don't get a single chance to grab the sword. She gaped at the towering scaled foot that crushed her home, and one sickening realization snapped into place: a hydra. The hydra was only the start of the wreckage. When the group faced the shattered ruins, Rona froze in horror, whispering that this was her home. Mariah said it was their village, her voice breaking with sorrow. Gerard took in the ruin with grim eyes, and Raid noticed her grandfather and the others looked like they'd already surrendered, like they'd never come back. He remembered Mararia's tale from that day, when monsters tore through everything, and her father and mother died fighting to keep her alive. Then in their last breath Mararia swore she'd take it all back one day. Later the Guardian ripped through the skies, and when he returned to their homeland, he brought her clan with pride restored. His mind wandered to what the village used to be, pure beauty, like the Dragon Country, where people lived in peace, untouched by monsters. Roanna's explosive shout ripped through the air. She demanded a raid and swore Mararia wanted to go home with everyone. Her words sparked a fire in Mararia's chest. She turned to Raid with fresh conviction, and she swore she'd reclaim the Guardian Sword, saying it would be the power that guides them all. With their mission crystal clear, Raid demanded to know where the sword was, right now. Mararia pointed them straight at the village chief's house and said the blade was locked away in a huge underground cavern. As they headed out, Luna's draconic eyes went sharp and tight because she caught an unfamiliar scent riding the wind. Her senses screamed right alongside Gerard's, and the massive red dragon bellowed in fury, warning the whole group that it was about to come for them. The warning hit just before it all went bad, then a massive surge of energy exploded straight into their path, swallowing the whole landscape in a violent, blinding blast. As the last bursts of energy faded, three figures stepped out like a storm breaking through the dark. Iru spat out a curse. Her flames couldn't get past their defenses, just like Lord Vasil had warned. Mararia's eyes went wide as she recognized them on sight. Vasil's direct subordinates, Sword Demon Vasil's 6 attendants. Raid and Milfy froze, staring in pure shock. The spiky-haired demon stares at the group and spots one instantly. He blurts out that it's Lady Iru, and he's sure the monster Lord Vasil's scent reached the water spirit village and shattered her seal. Right as he says it, Raider snaps that Vasil is a demon so powerful it rivals even the Demon King, and these must be his 6 attendants. She turns him toward Iru, who's standing there with her head bowed, and demands to know why Iru is tagging along. As Iru's sweat starts pouring, she can't even get a word out, so the demon squints, his mind racing as he decides she must have been dragged off and taken prisoner. She shoots a defiant look upward and declares she'll cling to her right to remain silent. Then Raid watches it all unfold and realizes this heavenly king is completely, hopelessly lost. Meanwhile, the dark-haired demoness leans in on Mararia, stunned that any water spirit is still breathing. Then she snaps back coldly. Vasil didn't just attack her village with monsters, he demanded it be wiped clean. Moriria's eyes snap wide with terror as her mind finally catches up to what the demon just said. The demoness keeps his faint smile and says in plain words that any clan strong enough to seal away one of the demon kings from the heavenly kings is a threat that must be wiped out, no point letting them live. Devastated by the truth, Rona crumples to the ground, sobbing over what's left of her clan and insisting their actions can never be forgiven, right as Raid slips a hand behind his back, quietly reaching for something. The 2 attendants start to glow with raw power, and the spiky-haired demon steps forward, calling himself Goraz the Will-o'-the-Wisp, telling everyone that Lord Vasil commands a fiery purge of anyone except the cat spirit tribe members who came for the sword. Then his partner, Shuro the Green Wind, yawns out that she's sleepy and just wants to finish this fast. An instant later, huge dark chains explode out of the ground, yanking the whole area into their grip, and Raid's heart slams as he watches in panic, while Luna points out that the magic pouring from the 2 demons is stronger than any normal dragon. Meanwhile, unseen, Raid tightens his hand around the thing he brought, relieved he didn't come empty-handed. She froze in place as dark magic chains slithered around Iru's leg, yanking her tight, and when she finally gasped in shock and pain, Goraz, one of the captors, just stared, seething with fury. Goraz erupted, shouting cowardice like it was a sneak attack, but Raid didn't flinch. Then it hit him, because Iru got caught right inside the trap. He snapped to the cat spirit tribe, shouting that they had to move now before the next wave of monsters showed up. He said demons could be handled fast if they got sealed before their magic even flared, then told Mararia to race off and grab the guardian sword, right now, before they lost their window. But the moment his plan kicked off, it got wrecked right in front of them. A gigantic multi-headed serpent erupted from the ground, dragging a whole swarm of monsters with it that flooded the area, and dread hit him hard as he realized they might have arrived too late, and they couldn't waste another second getting stuck here. Without a second to waste, he barked at Gerard to grab Mararia, Iru, and the rest and snag the guardian sword first. Then Gerard nodded, and the moment the order landed, Raid's body lurched back into motion, and Gerard belched a roaring torrent of flame that tore open a path straight through the demonic horde. As they blasted away from the battlefield, Rowana and Mararia spun around, fear in their eyes, and shouted his name. Rowan's voice sliced through the chaos, telling everyone she'd handed the guardian sword's retrieval to the other 2, while Raid and Milfy stood there together, facing the monster tide with nothing but each other. She snapped her sentence shut, certain that the moment they got it, every single one of them would break free together. He whirled on Milfy and told her straight up to join the others if she could, but she snapped back, no way, refusing to budge until every last monster was fully wiped out. Meanwhile, Goraz bucked and raged against the chains, yelling like he couldn't take it anymore. He instantly knew the sealing technique nailed into him wasn't some cheap trick, and Raid clocked that detail with a sharp, focused stare. His sealing technique landed, and Milfy just froze in disbelief as the demon started fighting back, like it was breaking reality. Her anti-dragon magic was getting crushed by sheer brute power, and she swore she wouldn't let it get the upper hand. With one brutal, roaring burst of power, Demon Goraz ripped apart the magical chains holding him. Then the wooden platform snapped and splintered under the crushing force. Milfi got blasted by the spell's shattered recoil and sprawled across the ground, while Goraz leaned over her with a smug little smirk, like he couldn't believe this tiny spirit had that much fight in her. Who couldn't press his advantage until Raid lunged forward again, and Goraz froze in shock when a fresh set of chains snapped into existence, Raid's dragon-binding chains. His shock didn't last, confusion snapped in fast. Goraz clocked the technique instantly, yet he couldn't wrap his head around it. How could it exist after Lord Vassal had supposedly wiped out the clan that used it? Hearing that, Raid was left staring at the truth, wondering what exactly his powers really were. They decided to hash it out later, then he snapped his focus onto the giant, many-headed serpent steering the monster horde. He unleashed an even heavier spell, those dragon-binding chains, and shouted for Luna to get in behind him. The glowing chains tore forward and cinched hard around the monster's body and neck, pinning the colossal beast so tightly it couldn't move an inch. With the biggest threat finally contained, he locked in their new priority with Luna. Right now, it was all about wiping out the monsters. Then the beastmen horde let out a savage roar and slammed forward to clash with them. She shot back instantly, blasting a relentless wave of destructive power from her mouth that crashed across the battlefield and swallowed the enemy's front lines whole. Milfi shook herself up, sprang back into the fight, and thrust out her hand to slam a binding spell on the beast man barreling toward her. She watched Raid slam back at the horde, tearing open the air with a surge of energy that vaporized an orc. Then he spun around to meet a charging minotaur head-on. He slammed into its attack and froze the beast solid in an instant, his hands still glowing faintly with the magic of the chains he'd just unleashed. Meanwhile, a shadowy winged figure leaned toward Luna and praised Raid's martial arts, saying his moves in that battle were truly something. Then he revealed he'd spent years watching the Empire's Dragon Knights train, a gift he learned from his parents long ago. Raid stared in pure shock as the wingman snapped his wrist, then those magical chains that still trapped Goros shattered like glass. At last unbound, Goraz thanked his rescuer, grimly admitting his best sealing technique had been shattered. Then Eru snapped at him for showing up late, swearing she'd been terrified he was already done for. Fantorus the winged man boomed that the magical power seals on both targets were finally complete, and Raid jolted, realizing the enemy had backup, not just one team. From where they stood, Goraz and Iru spotted a sealing technique user, and the danger level screamed highest class. Without warning, Fantorus rocketed forward in a blur, tearing across the distance to Raid. Raid was moving too fast, then bam, a brutal strike smashed into his chest, flinging him back as Luna blurted his name in panic. As Raid regained his footing, he clocked the exact stance his opponent chose. Ventura paused like he was sizing him up, then nodded to himself and fired up for the next move. Then he tore the air open with a terrifying technique. Dark energy coiled around his hand like a blade as he shouted, "Dark Fang-piercing blade." A shadowy winged fiend cloaked in black swooped down on Raid and slashed him with a nightmare attack made of dark energy, then shouted the move, "Dark Fang-piercing blade," as Raid's eyes went wide and a corrupted blade manifested right in front of him. When the attack hits out of nowhere, Luna, shining in her blazing white dragon form, surges forward with a thunderous roar and yells Raid's name. She shoots in and snatches the dark energy blade out of the air just before it can hit, shielding Raid with seconds to spare. The masked attacker Grunt snarls that his technique got shut down and Raid freezes, stunned by the sudden rescue. He processes the attack's name, and the second he hears it, his chest tightens. It's a skill he's never heard, but it feels weirdly familiar, like a known sword style got twisted into something demonic. His thoughts slam the technique straight into the divine dragon empire, where skills like this are born, and the moment the connection clicks, unease claws at him. The masked attacker clocked Raid's flicker of recognition, silently wondering how in the world a demon could pull off a move like that. The fight instantly forces space between them, then Fantorus slams onto the ground, while Luna hovers above, with Raid now safely secured on her back. The winged man scans the scene and realizes Raid is a monster at ruthless close-quarters combat. Then Raid clocks that his opponent won't even bother answering his silent questions, so he clenches his fists and launches himself straight into a fight. With the battle lines blazing across the sky, Raid's resolve snaps into place. His fists clench hard, burning with determination. Then it hits him, this guy is another descendant of the Imperial Dragon Knight, and his sealing techniques are so brutal they can bind and command ancient dragons. From the shadows, Eru and Goraz watch from afar as Goraz confirms it. The mission's done. They've sized up the sealing user's true skill, and Eru snaps. Now we report to Lord Vassal, nothing else matters. He yells for them to stop and spill the rest, but the winged figures are already charging forward, unstoppable. Behind him, Luna looms in her huge dragon form, perfectly poised and ready to strike. Fantorus, Goraz, and Eru shut his plea out of their minds and rocketed into the sky, vanishing fast from the area. As they blast off into the sky, Gora whips his gaze back and roars one last threat, swearing that the next time they cross paths, he'll personally wipe out the Imperial Dragon Knight's bloodline, the one Lord Vassal couldn't fully erase. As the demons shrink into tiny specks overhead, his voice dies off in the air. Luna turns to Raid and asks if they should chase, but he refuses, choosing instead to regroup with Rona and the rest. Later, the group gathers and Eru studies the whole mess like she's staring through the demon's eyes, then points out the brutal truth. Anyone with the power to seal the Demon King is the worst enemy imaginable, so Vei's plan to wipe out the entire clan is the only logical move. Raid leans in and listens, then shuts down a popular assumption about his clan. Sure, they've cared for dragons for generations, but the truth behind it hits totally different from what everyone believes. He keeps going, saying they weren't just caretakers who stumbled into sealing tricks. No, they became caretakers because their seals were strong enough to cage dragons, plain and simple. Eru then fires back that skills can evolve, and he bets Veizel's clan hunt yanked his family's original traditions out at the roots. Eru snaps everything together, then lays down her verdict. Raid's magic, his look, even that sealing technique matched the Imperial Dragon Knight to a T, and with the Demon King's revival looming and his army marching, Eru's dead certain. Raid is a bloodline descendant of that legendary clan. Revelation hits him like lightning, and he quietly reels as this brand new identity sinks in. Luna watches him with a soft smile and hints that maybe their meeting was fate too. Her words hover between them, and neither of them dares to move as they wrestle with what it really means. He blurts out that maybe his new identity means he's doomed to team up with Luna and take down the Demon King, but Eru dodges the question, claiming that as the Demon King's mistress, she has no interest in him being defeated, then snaps the topic away, asking whether the seal they were talking about is still holding. Rowena and Mariah are pinned down by a shimmering, unseen barrier, and that's when her question hangs there in the air, while Rowena hurls furious punches at it, magical energy crackling from her fists with every strike. Luna stands watching, urging them to last just a bit longer, fully aware they're fighting for every second. Raid freezes, eyes racing as he realizes Luna could unleash her breath and shatter the barrier, right through it. Then he shuts that idea down fast because he knows the whole underground cavern could collapse. So he whips toward Rowena, plants a hand on her shoulder, and asks her to help him for a moment. He pours his own magic straight into Rowena, and her eyes snap wide in shock. Then he tells her he's supercharged her power for only about 10 seconds, so she has to smash that barrier while the window's still open. When she feels the surge rip through her, Rowena clenches her teeth and goes all in for the final hit. With a thunderous shout, she slams her fist into the barrier, and it explodes into a storm of glowing shards, like it never stood a chance. When it's shattered, she grins and looks back, flushed with victory, calling out that she can see past it now. Luna can't help but say how insanely impressive that was for a kid. With the path finally cleared, the crew charges deeper into the cavern, until they stumble on a massive, pitch-black spring where the hilt of a sword juts straight up from the water. Right as they draw near, Raid blurts out, "Is this the guardian sword of the spring?" And Eru hovers beside him, eyes blazing wide with shock as she spots the blade and can barely get the words out. She snaps that it's the divine dragon imperial sword, Reeden, the holy blade the Imperial Dragon Knight carried into battle right beside the Demon King. Raid's eyes widen as he realizes this is exactly what the 6 attendants were sent to grab. Eru wastes no time, confirming Raid's conclusion. The truth hits hard and Rowena can't shake the question, why is a weapon like this sitting in their village? Raid snaps the puzzle together. His clan's sealing magic can trap the Demon King. Then Luna drops another bomb, her water spirit clan can seal Eru, and now it all clicks for him. Veizel isn't just attacking for revenge, he's wiping out every clan that could stand in the way of the Demon King's revival. Arrow adds the last, game-changing piece of the past. Right before she was sealed, someone reported a cat-eared girl in the Imperial Dragon Knight's ranks, and now she's sure that wasn't just some beast person, it was a real member of the cat spirit tribe. She tells them that this old link is the reason the sword stayed safe inside the village all these years, and when Mariah hears it, her ears perk up and twitch with pure shock. She gasped in disbelief, remembering how her parents warned her that the sword held the power to wipe out great evil, yet she never imagined it was going to be this legendary artifact. As the blade flares with insane magical power, it rolls over the whole group, Mariah's hands gripping it tight, then Raid clicks, thinking he could take down a Hydra with one clean swing. Meanwhile, in the land of dragons, Luna rushes in with the latest reports, and the moment Dragon King Alburn hears what's happening, he slams together an emergency meeting, because the demons might be ready to strike the dragon country. Back in the village, Luna presses Raid on why he skipped the meeting, until Raid shrugs and says the high-level talk is for the dragons. Right then, something shifts, an elder is closing in, and Moraria's eyes go wide as she realizes it's her grandfather, the cat spirit tribe chief. The elder practically exhales in total relief, thanking Sir Raid for getting their guardian's sword back, and when the praise comes pouring in, Raid brushes it off, saying they only pulled it off because they worked as one. He keeps talking, saying that this sword is basically a guardian deity for his people, and he pours out his gratitude, not just for it being returned, but for hearing him out and helping his tribe finally find their way back home. As he finishes his words, the whole cat spirit tribe drops into a perfect bow together, and the chief declares, "We'll repay this debt with our lifelong service." The chief gives Moraria a huge shout-out for how they helped power their success, and that floods Raid's face with a quick, bashful blush, like the gratitude's hitting him way too hard. She whips her head to him, a shy blush blooming on her cheeks, and tells him with a soft, heartfelt, "Well done." As the rest of the tribe roars her name, Raid locks eyes with her and flashes a warm, proud smile. Luna, all in her elven form, grins with sparkling eyes and declares she's ready to dive into a mountain of juicy, delicious meat. Right then, Roanna's excitement explodes, and she snatches Raid's arm, practically dragging him toward the feast. The celebration's roaring right now. One of the cat spirit tribe members shoots his drink into the air and shouts for everyone to celebrate the guardian sword's return, and the whole village erupts in feasting and laughter, while Luna slides out platters of food for everyone. While the party rages around him, Faye happily shovels in his meal, and Raid, Rona, and Mariah huddle together, digging into the tasty food in the middle of pure, peaceful bliss. After they partied hard and spent every coin like it was nothing, the whole crew, and even the villagers, finally crash from exhaustion, drop where they stand, and fall into deep sleep scattered across the clearing in quiet, peaceful slumber. He dozes off peacefully, a calm smile on his face, totally oblivious to the chaos spiraling somewhere else. In a shadowy secret hideout, Vassal the Sword Demon finally commits. This is his moment. Gorez and a hooded attendant lurk in the dark, watching every breath, while the hooded figure murmurs that the suspicion they've clung to for so long is true. The Imperial Dragon Knight's descendant is alive. Gerard the Red Dragon rallies his kin and shakes them awake, reminding them how the princess fought like a hero back in the cat spirit tribe's homeland, never once flinching against the demon race. Then he lets out a thunderous roar, demanding they get their hearts racing and gear up for the job. The words rattle through the other dragons, and they roar that the demons won't slip away after attacking the princess's partner. Then Luna learns Raid is being called her future husband, and her face burns with embarrassment because the whole thing feels utterly unforgivable. He stands right next to Raid, saying their intentions are solid, but she's thrown off by the way they keep calling him her husband, and just a few steps away, Faye squints, trying to figure out if Raid's not totally wrong about how close they really are. Raid cuts off the worry about the species gap. He insists that because the princess can now turn into a human, those barriers don't matter anymore. Before his sentence finishes, Luna rockets forward and lands a brutal hit on Faye's head, shutting him down cold. The moment the discussion heats up, Moraria and Rona crash in. Moraria snaps at Gerard to shut down his inappropriate talk because kids are right there, and Rona flashes a bright, cheerful hello to Ray. Moraria turns to them and asks what brought them here, then explains it's just a regular report, everything's fine, and the cat spirit tribe is even lending their strength to help guard the dragon country. He reads the news and figures staying peaceful is the best move, and right beside him, Roanna lanes in with a calm smile, "Don't worry." Confidence surges as she squares her shoulders and puffs her chest, swearing that no matter what hits them, they'll shield everyone. The calm shatters when a messenger dragon rockets in and bellows for the princess, then drops the bomb. Their comrades have sensed a huge surge of magic from Cernaria, a faint echo that feels just like the sealing magic Lord Raid used. Luna snaps to attention and demands, "Which area?" The messenger blurts out the location, the Great Forest War, and the moment Raid and Luna hear the name, it hits them like a memory bomb, dragging them back to when a younger Raid sprinted through the woods toward a fallen dragon. When he's finally back with Raid, it all clicks. Rona doesn't feel any sealing magic on him, which makes her believe the Demon King is trapped somewhere inside the massive forest, stirring up that strange magical disturbance. Raid, standing beside Rona, nods and tells her they've got to go investigate. Gerard and Luna snap into their real dragon forms and rocket into the sky, tearing across the landscape like living storms. As they ride through the wild, Luna leans forward and asks Raid, since he's perched on her back like he totally knows what he's doing, if he's got a destination in mind, and Raid grins and tells her his father once told him about a secret training spot in the forest, a place they used all the time back in the days of the Divine Dragon Empire. Raid, Roanna, and Luna clash over training. Roanna can't believe they picked the Great Force. Luna calls it smart strategy to hide a safe haven inside enemy territory, and Raid jumps in too, saying the monsters are gone, so this place is the perfect base for their search. Now on foot, Mararia snaps the question to him. Couldn't he train openly while he was stuck caring for the sky dragons? Ray gives a tired grin and admits he felt totally out of place, barely managing anything beyond his orders. Then Mararia leans in, gently taps his cheek, and tells him she gets it. That must have crushed him. As the crew pushes deeper into the woods, Mararia notices something terrifying. The Holy Sword's magic has faded since they dragged it back. Iru shrugs and says it's saving its energy for a real emergency, which means their raid just got way harder. If he wants to unleash the blade at full power, it'll take top-tier skill, and the legend itself has to judge him worthy. She blares out that Mararia handed him the sword because she, the cat spirit tribe's representative, truly thinks his rare bloodline power will let him master it, and Mararia freaks out, shoving Iru to shut up and snapping that she's raid-testing him. But Iru can't even hear her. He's locked onto the forest's eerie, unnatural quiet with not a single monster in sight. Because everyone knew the moment those monsters got too close, they'd have to square up with two ancient dragons, and that's a fight they never wanted. Then it hits him one tiny detail he'd totally missed until right now. He latches onto Iru's words about his royal bloodline, an imperial dragon knight's descendant, and a wild theory sparks in his head. The forest wasn't just full of monsters, it's been cursed for ages, fed by a sealed demon king's influence. That would explain why his clan picked this very place for training. Watch the seal, stay ready for disaster. Then it hits him like a lightning bolt. This is the exact spot where he and Luna were reunited. He turned to Luna, saying their reunion here felt like fate, and even the great dragon nodded like, yep, it was exactly that. In the heart of that thick forest, ancient trees and worn stones were covered with eerie cross-shaped carvings, like sacred ground had been branded by something long forgotten. As they pushed forward, Mararia snapped, confused. This trail didn't feel like it led where they needed to go. Raid just flashed a calm grin and said it was right ahead. He guided her to the wood's edge, and she froze, eyes locked on a clearing. Right in the middle of a calm pool, a towering dark monolith shot upward toward the sky. Mararia stepped outside and gasped at how insanely open it suddenly felt, while Luna zeroed in on the structure, sensing this weird magical power crawling out of it, and grilled Raid, asking what it was. He explained that this was the heart of a barrier, built to lock the training ground down and keep every monster far away. His eyes snapped to Iru, lounging by the water with her feet dipped in like it was no big deal, and that's when it hit him. The barrier had loopholes. He couldn't stop thinking, was her demonic side getting brushed off just because she was standing right beside him? Staring back at the monolith, nostalgia hit him like a wave, his father's voice still ringing in his head, calling it their clan's precious treasure, the one they'd guarded for generations, and him reliving those childhood days when he'd cleaned it right beside him. Driven by that memory, he snatched a cloth and started scrubbing the stone. Then, out of nowhere, the monolith erupted with a soft, shimmering glow. Sparkling light surged into a steady, rhythmic flash, and Luna caught the strange pattern. Then her question tore through the air. What did it mean? The startled Raid could only stammer, I don't know, I've never seen it flash like this before. Mararia glares at the glowing monolith, clutching the guardian's sword reed as it burns in her hands, because if a sword has shown up, then the moment has arrived. Meanwhile, Raid just stares, stunned, and can barely get the weapon's name out, his disbelief choking every word. The monolith blasts up from the water, exploding into a blazing column of light that washes over Raid, Mararia, and Luna as they stare in shock. A shadowy figure forms out of the glowing light, an elegant man in ornate traditional robes, dark hair tied back, who steps forward and greets everyone with a calm smile as Mikazuchi, the former Imperial Dragon Knight. Iru's jaw drops when he appears. She blurts that it can't be real, because all that's left of him is his soul trapped inside a magic stone. Then Mikazuchi smiles at her like no time has passed, telling her it's been ages and she hasn't changed. Red-faced, Iru snaps that he only beat time to embarrass her, and when the spirit lets out a chuckle, Raid realizes his figure is already starting to fade. The spirit nods and tells her the truth. Since he's just a soul, he's got hardly any time left, and right as it's said, his hand starts to break apart into glowing particles. Mikazuchi snapped into full focus on Raid, and with urgency blazing in his voice, he said there was one thing he had to ask him. He demanded the kid's name on the spot. Raid snapped back, I'm Raid, and I'm a dragon tamer for the Divine Dragon Empire. When they hear it, Mikazuchi's face lights up with knowing confidence. He turns to the stunned Raid crew and declares, loud and clear, yeah, I'm your ancestor. He hears the doubt in Raid's voice and tells him the truth. He didn't learn about this era from books. He learned it from a spirit of an ancestor a few generations back. Then that spirit drops the bomb. Their family traditions got ripped apart by Vassal, and now he's going to lay it all out for Raid, no secrets left. The ancestral spirit whirls toward Raid and his ancient dragon partner, Luna, then commands them to listen with every ounce of their focus. He hung on every word as his ancestor, Mikazuchi, dropped a bombshell. Turns out the Demon King wasn't some outsider at all, but a half-breed blood relative from their own clan. Mikazuchi admitted his first plan was to wipe out that shame himself, yet the only move he could pull off was sealing the demon, at the price of his own life. That act only kicked the can down the road and left his soul in the same weakened state it's in right now. When it all clicked, Raid finally saw what his clan was really built for, and he demanded to know why the dragon tamers were after Suk in the Divine Dragon Empire. Mikazuchi laid it out like a legend. Our people once lived on an island to the east, and to crush the Demon King we had to cross the sea, sparking the first dragon tamers, the ones who could talk to dragons and borrow their wings. Then when Mikazuchi died and Vasil nearly wiped out the clan, one survivor got hunted and treasured by the Divine Dragon Empire for that same gift, and that's how the bloodline lived on, now reduced to nothing but dragon caretakers. A jolt hit him as he realized Aru's suspicion was dead on. His clan's true, generations-forged gift was the art of sealing techniques. Mikazuchi pressed on, saying the monolith didn't just broadcast his power, it was the doorway to the alternate dimension where the Demon King was sealed, and Aru went, no wonder we can't find him. Then the spirit snapped the truth into the air. As time dragged on, key details vanished and the seal quietly grew weaker. His ancestor stared at him, a small grin curling on his lips, and said it was fate, divine guidance leading them here, like that Raid had been steering straight to this very moment. That Raid had come to this place carrying Reed as. The spirit's shape flickered and his power drained fast. Mikazuchi admitted he was almost out of strength, but he still had one final message to deliver. Raid caught the panic and fired back, asking what he should do about the Demon King. Mikazuchi's eyes went razor-sharp as he said this fading seal was their chance to wipe the demon out for good, because the magic he'd burned dry in their first clash had slowly come roaring back over all these years. Then he turned to his descendant and barked the order, use the divine dragon imperial sword and destroy the Demon King. He leaned in and demanded of Raid would he take the job. Raid didn't even blink, his face snapped into determination as he accepted right away, swearing that if they crush the Demon King, everyone gets to finally live in peace. His ancestor froze at the bold declaration, then, a heartbeat later, calm like a warm sunrise washed over his face. He shut his eyes, and with a deep, grateful breath, he offered his thanks as his ancestor's spirit slips away, Raid plants himself in front of that towering black monolith, the Demon King's seal, and stares up, stunned into silence because the huge, impossible job has just landed in his lap. Suddenly the monolith starts violently shaking, a nasty deep rumble tearing through the stone, and Raid's eyes snap wide with pure alarm, completely blindsided by the chaos that erupts. With a deafening roar, the whole structure collapses, then the core detonates, blasting a brutal wave of energy outward and sending Luna and Aru skidding through the air, thrown backward hard. In the middle of the chaos, Raid finally grasps the nightmare. Mikazuchi's magic stone, the one he used to lock his soul inside, gets obliterated by a single, crushing blow, and as the dust settles, Mika's spirit stares back with pure pain and shock on his face. A fresh figure crawls out of the fading dust, young, draped in black armor, wearing a cruel smile like a threat, and he declares he's been waiting for this exact moment, thrilled to finally feel that power burst to life, his eyes burning with malice as he spits at the disgusting aura in front of him. Mikazuchi's ghostly form snaps into place, and the moment he faces the armored intruder, shock and fury rip through his expression. He shouts that he wants to know how Vasil slipped past their sanctuary, then immediately demands what happened to the ancient dragon on guard outside. The answer hits you in the middle of absolute chaos. Monstrous creatures swarm and smash into the dragons, and the whole world erupts in a brutal, no-holds-barred brawl. As the invasion's true size finally hits, Raid's stomach drops, because even the sword demon's 6 attendants have stepped into the battlefield, and they're a terrifying squad ready to fight. But he stayed unimpressed, sizing them up and saying they were ready, while he calmly dropped the truth. He knew the Demon King was sealed in another dimension, and coolly snapped that he hadn't wasted the hundreds of years he'd been waiting. Right after he says that, a vile darkness bursts up from the ground and coils around his feet, swallowing the area in a swirling stench of corruption, his power blazing outward as he calls Mikazuchi's name like he's been haunting it for years. A massive power surge hits everyone at once. Raid senses a sinister, heavy wave of magic, and Rona screams in terror as the trees around them wither and die from its corrupting force. Zuchi felt the danger in his bones, spun toward Aru, and blurted an apology, because their foe wasn't just strong, he was on another level entirely. Then Zuchi's eyes snapped to Raid, and his voice turned grim as he warned the kid to be careful. Reveals a jaw-dropping truth that slams the words right out of Raid. Vasil wasn't always a monster. He he used to be human, the same brave warrior who, right beside Mikazuchi, helped forge the Divine Dragon Empire-style techniques. That shock slams into Raid like a gut punch, the founder of the Divine Dragon Empire style, and now everything clicks. No wonder the tendons can pull off those moves. As Raid stumbles back, Vassal just watches with a deadpan face and spits out, "I can't believe a dull descendant like you is part of Mikitsuichi." What? Vassal lifts his sword and it hums with raw divine power. Then he shouts his move, a technique from the Divine Dragon Empire, Dragon Claw Swift Descent ***. A massive spectral dragon claw rips out of his blade and charges straight for the target, nailing them hard in the stun rate. He braced himself as Vasil unleashed a Divine Dragon Empire-style move, the Dragon Knight's Dragon Wing Waltz, then the blade screamed through the air at breakneck speed, straight for him. An unseen hit slams him backward hard enough to make blood burst from his chest, then he faceplants into the ground, stunned, because the blade never actually touched him at all. Mikitsuchi's spirit can't stop wondering if that attack was really erupting magical power. Pinned to the ground, Mikitsuchi locks eyes on Vasil's weapon, the Divine Dragon Imperial Blade, Shangri-La, and declares it a holy sword made to team up with Riiden to slaughter demons. Then the truth hits. It's been tainted by demonic power, and Mikitsuchi can't believe something like that still slices through the air with magic energy alone. The swordsman slams out another blast of raw force, and it charges forward like a meteor. Raid gets knocked back again, coughing up blood while Faye yells his name in panic. Vasil's voice turns ice gold as he declares he'll sacrifice Mikitsuchi's final surviving bloodline just to kick off the Demon King's revival. He demands to know why Vasil, the warrior who co-created the Divine Dragon techniques, turned into a demon, and Vasil's answer hits like ice. A human's life slips away too fast. The Demon King granted his wish for endless time so he could sharpen his skills to the very top, and then, calling Raid a battle-crazed maniac, Vasil orders his dragons to slaughter him. He hurls another devastating move and yells its name, **** Dragon Claw Spiral Grind ****, and a storm of destructive energy rips through the air straight toward us. That swirling energy crashes into Faye and Luna's teamed-up Dragon Breath Blast and gets wiped out cold. Vasil spits out a curse at the ancient dragons for butting in, and right when the gap opens, Raid yells for Luna to move. The demon swordsman's already one step ahead. He clocks Raid's move the moment it starts, like Mikitsuchi's sealing art, and snaps out his own trap. Glowing, ethereal dragon-binding chains burst around him, poised to grab and strangle his opponent. His attack stopped the Raid and it hit him hard. Vasil slipped the chains right out of his blind spot. No surprise anymore, no doubts either. He steadied himself, felt that new fire in his chest, and screamed, "Uru, burn it." She snaps into action at once, surging forward in a roaring blaze of fire, streaking straight at Vasil, and shouting a hard warning so he doesn't get the wrong idea. Just because she's been tamed doesn't mean her body is his to command. As the smoke from her attack starts to fade, Raid stares hard, while his dragon companion leans in, hopeful, begging the question, did they actually take down their foe? Still, a brutal surge of energy detonates from the inferno itself, tears the flames aside like they're paper, and gouges a massive wound straight into the land. When the smoke finally vanishes, Vasil stands there, no scratches, no damage, staring down a frozen Uru and declaring he's not misreading a thing before he'll cut down every last traitor. In his head, Vasil admits Raid is way tougher than he expected, and right then Luna gasps and screams Raid's name in panic. He lifts his own blade high, and the name of it crashes through his mind like a promise, Riiden. He tightens his grip on the hilt, and suddenly the sword feels like it belongs to him, and then it hits. As Mikitsuchi, the Imperial Dragon Knight's descendant, he can finally unleash the blade's real power. His confidence doesn't last, and he knows it. He can only fight barehanded in the Divine Dragon Empire style against Vasil, so now he's stuck wondering if he can really pull it off. Ray locks eyes with the demonic swordsman, and the sheer weight of his presence crushes the air. Ray starts to wonder if he can even beat a monster like this using sword skills he's never trained a day in his life. Right then, Mikitsuchi's spirit bursts to his side, and with everything on the line, she declares the plan she'll pass Raid a piece of her memories, experience, and magic straight into him. But she warns him. That power will burn out in just a few minutes, and the recoil will erase her spirit forever. His ghostly shape locks onto Raid and drives one chilling truth into him, only he can stop Vasil. Then the spectral figure delivers one final, grave command, do it for tomorrow. Those words sink deep into Raid's chest, and for a heartbeat he bows his head, taking the crushing weight of this duty like it's real. Then he grabs hold of his resolve, ready to fight what's coming. He finally got it. Those stories about his ancestral roots and the survival of their people used to sound huge but unreal, until this very moment changed everything. Right in front of him stood the very source of this new reality, the root of all evil, finally made real and standing there, staring him down. Staring down an opponent dripping pure killing intent, his fists clenched hard, because if this enemy was here to end them, then the only play was simple: beat him or die trying. His resolve hardened like steel. He shouted straight to the spirit inside, and his voice thundered with grit. "Mikitsuchi, I'm borrowing your power." The spirit inside him snapped back with a clear, proud voice, like the fog of doubt had vanished for good. "All right, let's begin." That's when his final blood relative with that blessing, a tidal wave of magic slammed into Raid, and suddenly Mikitsuchi's hard-earned knowledge, his battle techniques, and his centuries of experience all fused into Raid like they'd always been his. Power surged through him, and now, riding with Faye, he raised a brand new ornate sword and pressed his hand to his partner's. He apologized to Luna, begged her to stay by him to the very end, and swore that with her at his side and this fresh strength roaring in his bones, he could finally keep up with his foe. His opponent just smirked, clocking the moment the Dragon Knight roared back to life, and Vasil couldn't help but say Raid always blew his expectations out of the water. Then Raid shot back that the Imperial Dragon Knight was stepping through this challenge, and Vasil didn't even hesitate. Their wills collided, then Vasil snapped into action, unleashing a devastating strike as the scale light moon shattered. He roared and flooded the sky with a storm of energy blades. Perched atop Luna, Raidwade watches the colossal white dragon rip loose a brutal assault. Scale light moonbreak, then scale light moonbreak. Her roar slices through the air as she swears, head first and fearless, that not a single finger of their enemy will touch Raid, not even the tip of his sword. The attack finally fades, and down below their opponent, Vasil, stays planted on the ground, scowling as a small wound smolders on his shoulder, but the dragon's mind can't faze him. Off snarls that Raid is just a brat and that his 1,000 techniques mean nothing, but Raid, flooded with Mikitsuchi's memories, fires back that Vasil has totally misread him. Then he declares he's going to channel a sealing technique. The ultimate art, *Night Power God ***. He slams his declaration, whips Luna forward, and dives toward Vasil as he snarls for the ancient power to awaken. As Vasil's back turns, a brutal vortex of pure darkness tears open in the air behind him. Then ghostly white chains burst out, whipping across the battlefield and locking everything in place. They snare their target and clamp Vasil down tight, and when he sees it happen, shock hits. His eyes turn black as the magic restraints flare and pulse with raw power. Raid tightens his grit as the vortex tries to yank him into a pitch-black abyss, straining and grunting like it's the fight of his life, while, from afar, Raid and Luna watch every second. Realization hits Raid like a punch. This is the ultimate technique that once sealed the Demon King, and right now Vasil is getting dragged straight into another dimension. Even as the spell roared with raw power, Vasil sneered at it like a petty trick and clutched his sword. Then Raid snapped, shouting that he won't let Vasil slip away. Steel rang as he met Vasil's blade head-on. Sparks blasted everywhere while their swords fought for control, trapped in that brutal struggle as the sealing chains kept crushing the demons. Sword Demon Vasil jerked back in shock as those chains of light, summoned from the ceiling, snapped tight around it. Raid stared, stunned, though Vasil's magic was still getting swallowed and his movement chained down. He still snapped his blade aside and blocked every one of Raid's sword strikes. Dread hit him hard. At this pace, could Vasil actually dodge the final sealing technique he'd poured almost all his magic into? The second activation was out of reach, and he could already feel Mikitsuchi's borrowed power fading fast. He clenched his teeth in fury. Right there sat the portal to the other dimension, but Vasil's resistance was a mountain he couldn't break. Chains of light sank deeper into the demon's form, blazing bright as he fought tooth and nail against the binding spells. Vasil snapped his head up with a smug, condescending grin, baiting the Raid like it was nothing. Then he scoffed, asking if that was all Vasil's sealing power could do, claiming it was just a flimsy knockoff of Mikitsuchi. That creepy demon chuckled in the shadows as Raid groaned, muscles trembling under the pressure, while Faye froze, realizing his breath attack could crack the fragile seal, and Rona could only stare, way too far to stop it in time. Vasil's triumphant laughter rolled through the battlefield as a brand new figure burst in, heeled boots slamming down on the ground like a promise. A young girl with sharp elven features stepped into view, clutching a glowing orb that pulsed with raw power. Then she declared Vasil the sworn nemesis of her clan and vowed to wipe him out on the spot, unleashing a roaring wave of energy. Freshly caught off guard, Vasil erupted in disbelief as streams of water magic tightened around him, and he snarled, "Why would some leftover water spirit get in my way?" But the girl stayed stone calm and answered, "Because it isn't the one interfering, it's the one pinning you down." With the demon chained down, Ray yanks his sword free, polished steel singing as it catches the light, and he calls out to Milphie, voice rock solid, telling her to take it from here. The water spirit girl plants her feet in a fighting stance, fists up, and her eyes flare wide. She knows what's coming, because a ghostly legendary knight, Mikazuchi, suddenly forms behind Raid, copying his exact posture like a perfect mirror. That same familiar stance detonates a storm of memories in Raid's mind, only their Mikazuchi's, not his. A younger vassal flashes in his vision, rage twisting his face, eyes blazing with demonic power. He shrieks Mikazuchi's name and screams that it makes no sense. How could he be beaten after training so brutally, just to rise above even the ancient dragons? The scene snaps back to before the fall, and Mikazuchi blurts that Vasil has won again, like, of course he would, since someone from the east came to take down the Demon King. Vasil acts almost humbled, admitting he's stunned that even the strongest knight of the Divine Dragon Empire is praising him. Mikazuchi lays it all out in a study, and with Vasil backing him up, he finally dares to hope he can finish the exact technique that could stop the Demon King. Vasil whips away with a sharper retort, then thanks Mikazuchi for teaming up, only to declare that he's helping just to beat him. Their rivalry explodes across endless sparring rounds. Mikazuchi's sharper skills shine as he slams Vasil to the ground, but that stubborn knight fights back, springing up again as their blades lock in a brutal, teeth-gritting clash. Later, Mikazuchi spots Vasil alone in a dim room, then strides up to his rival and drives the question straight into the air. Does he really want to beat him? The vision slips away and Raid snaps back into the present. Then it hits him like a crushing wave because the truth clicks at last. What he just saw was Vasil's past, laid bare through Mikazuchi's memories. He finally sees the demon for what it really is. Then Vasil's whole world narrows to one mission, beating Mikazuchi, no matter what it costs. His pride burns so hot it won't let him do anything else, pushing him to shed his humanity and turn into a demon just to win. He flinched at those same familiar words, while Mikazuchi's spirit, locked inside Raid, pushed that he still needed more training, and Vasil erupted, shouting that his old rival had no right to use Raid's face to talk to him. Raid snapped into action, channeled the spirit's power, and unleashed the Divine Dragon Empire's Dragon Knight's forbidden move, the dragon-piercing awakening, when a ghostly, skeletal blast of energy shot out and crashed straight into Vasil's chest. That punch jolted Vasil off his feet, and a dark aura thrashed around him like a storm. Raid, blazing with Mikazuchi's righteous fury, roared that it was payback for the water spirits, the cat spirits, and the ancestors Vasil slaughtered. His eyes flared with pure hatred as he roared that Raid better apologize to all of them in the afterlife. The brutal vision snapped in two, yanking Ray back into the present. He stood in a silent clearing as the past's echoes died out, while Milfi watched him from just a few steps away. He stared down at the dagger in his grip, and then it hit him. The technique he just witnessed wasn't just any move. It was the ultimate art, Nightblade God, and it didn't only strike the target, it sealed them, along with the space around them. The truth hit him like a ton of bricks. Without Mikazuchi's memories, he'd have stumbled through his whole life in total ignorance, and with a small, stunned smile, he finally admitted how impossibly legendary his ancestor was. The borrowed power drained away completely. Time was up, the direct link vanished, but Mikazuchi's memories still burned in his head. He stared up at the sky and spoke to the ghost that lingered there, telling it he'd taken on their clan's legacy and sealed Vasil away so his ancestor could finally rest. From the ethereal plane, Mikazuchi's spirit flickered with a faint, proud smile, recognizing the incredible young man now carrying his will. Once the fighting finally ended, Raid sprinted back to Milfi, Rona, and Luna, and there they stood, shoulder to shoulder, staring at a huge black monolith that had erupted from the ground, sealing away Sword Demon Vasil right there. He stares at the black monolith, and the truth hits him like a punch. The Nightblade God technique he used didn't just work, it carved open a doorway to another dimension, with a roiling vortex of darkness swirling above the seal. While a demon attendant cringes and apologizes to her demon king for letting him go, Raid snaps his senses awake. Something huge is ripping through the air, magic that rivals even the ancient dragons. Right then Luna steps in and declares, "It's just you and me from here," ordering the others to wait. Then the truth hits. This power comes from chaos itself, as a roaring horde of monsters, beastmen, and winged demons charges across the land with pure, ferocious intent. Gora's Fantaurus and a light-haired attendant rush in up front, and with a smug little smile she declares, "Exactly as I thought, Lord Vassal is defeated." From where he stands, Raid locks eyes with the truth. This is bigger than he thought. Before him, the last sword demons, 6 attendants, and every one of their subordinates crowd together, all waiting like a storm about to break. He shouts that with Vasil sealed, there's no reason to keep fighting, and inside, he admits he's drained after shattering the ancient dragon's encirclement and begging for peace. But Goras fires back with a murderous glare, screaming that without their master, they've got one job now: revive the Demon King. Feeling wiped out, Milfi pushes Ray forward and tells her the hard truth. He burned nearly all his magic sealing Vasil, and if anything even stronger shows up next, he'll be completely out of options. When Gerard and Mariah see Raid's crack in his armor, they surge forward, planting themselves between him and the enemy horde, and Gerard snaps, "Leave this to us, we'll hold the line." Mariah follows up with a fierce grin. "Then I'll be your shield at least." He stares down a staggering demonic army and instantly knows this won't end well if he charges headfirst, so he wrestles with one terrifying question: should he still march to seal the Demon King, even if it costs his allies everything? Then reinforcements slam down from the sky, dragons everywhere, led by the one who calls Gerard brother. They shout that the other demons are gone and the survivors are caught, and Gerard fires back praise as the dragons roar, charging into the fight against what's left of the demonic forces. He roared and sprinted straight at the draconic reinforcements, smashing into their thunderous charge, and with all his kin behind him, he bellowed the order for one last, decisive shove. With the dragons barreling ahead, Raid watched his allies clash with the fray as one. But the demon attendants weren't having it. Phantor's face twisted in fury as he spat that the ancient dragons had no business interfering. The battle flared up right alongside his draconic friends, then everything swung to Luna. He snapped out a fast apology, swore he'd be back soon, and trusted his allies to keep the line standing. Then he watched Luna dive into a spinning whirlpool of darkness, dragging them toward their next destination. Clinging to atop Luna, rage surges through the air as they rocket across the sky, lightning snapping and crackling all around them at breakneck speed. They finally reach their destination, right as a towering, monstrous giant looms ahead, trapped tight by a glowing magical chain that rips straight through its spiky hide. Mika's descendant lands in front of the creature as its single eye snaps down on him, blazing with fury. The demon growls and admits it smells Mika Zucha's bloodline, then it demands, right there, if Raid showed up to wipe it out. When asked, the Demon King spits out a roaring flood of magic power, bragging it's nearly endless. Then his terrifying presence hits Raid so hard he flinches. He steadied himself, then realized the threats were pointless, because he's the guy who deals with sealing techniques, and he can tell Mika Zuchai's seal is still working perfectly, leaving the demon utterly helpless for now. The Demon King blinked, thrown off by the fact that he didn't feel an ounce of fear. Then he snapped, asking if he'd finally lost his mind, and whether he really planned to destroy it. It totally changes tactics, dangling promises of power like bait, and the demon swears that with its help, Raid can stare into the abyss of sorcery, rewrite the world's truth, and even claw his way into eternal life. The creature keeps pushing, promising to turn Raid into a demon-like vassal and grant any wish he wants. So Raid just stays calm, sits there, and asks if the mighty Demon King is really begging for its life now. Luna shouts, pushing him forward, and he insists, plain and proud, that he's just a humble dragon caretaker. Then the demon snarls through a pained grunt as the magical seal flares brighter. He raises a glowing crystal and declares he just wants peace in the dragon country, then slams the crystal into the chain, pouring fresh power into the ancient seal. He jabs the glowing crystal toward the monolith, unleashing its power, and the burst of light slams into the sealed Demon King, making the monster recoil, bellow in raw agony, and forcing the magical prison to clamp down even tighter. A blinding light engulfs the monstrous thing and shatters its shape. Its body fractures while it screeches in panic, begging to know what Vasil is doing and demanding freedom before Vasil's overwhelming power swallows its voice. When the blinding light fades, Raid looks back from Luna's back, jaw tight, eyes set, grimly sure the nightmare is finally over. He and Luna rocketed into the sky, and with them gone, that monolith sat there, eerily calm in the middle of the lake, while the forest around it stayed perfectly still. Their flight slingshots them back into a clearing, and boom, their allies are already there. A whole crowd of dragons circles the place, with Rona, Mararia, and Milfi waiting with bated breath. The second Rona locks eyes on him. Relief crashes through her as she shouts his name. He touches down and Milfi and Mararia meets him right away, her presence like a welcome fire. His face lights up fast as he announces his return. As the crew starts to reassemble, Luna whips around in midair and fires a question at Gerard. What happened to the demons? Gerard says they all wailed and then crumbled into nothing the second Raid came back. Right there, Eru freezes in grim reflection and explains it all. When the Demon King vanished, the demons collapsed in a chain reaction, powered by the Holy Sword's might. Then her face sinks as she admits it with a bitter sigh. She tried to die, but she failed, and she's still stuck alive. She says later they found out the truth. Only the ones who swore total loyalty to the Demon King got shattered with him, and since she hadn't fully aligned herself, she escaped it. Raid admits everyone's battered, but he can't stop thanking fate that they're alive, and he tells them to pray at the monolith before heading back to the dragon country. The second he finishes his words, the whole ground bucks, and that monolith in the water starts to thrash like it's about to break free. His eyes go huge with shock and he screams, "Everybody up into the sky." As the monolith prison shudders and collapses, the dragons snap to the order, evacuate, then tear off into the storm, whipping through the rain-slicked, turbulent sky. Amid the chaos, a brand new figure bursts into view, eyes burning black with rage. He roars Raid's name and Raid fires right back, shouting the sword demon's name, Vassal. The armored demon snarls, asking how Raid ever dared to seal the Demon King, and Raid snaps back. The moment he sealed the whole space, the Demon King slipped free of the demon's destructive protection, cut off from any outside interference. His fury snaps onto the fleeing dragons, so he picks one out and declares it Mikazuchi's last descendant. With a roar full of hate, he slams his massive blade down, ripping into the dragon and blaming it for existing at all. His blade tears through the sky in a devastating slash, dropping his real target and taking out several other dragons that get caught in the blast. As Raid watches the massacre unfold, dread crashes down on him. Luna's out-of-breath attack magic, the ancient dragon sluggish in every move, and every single person is hanging on by a thread. He snaps his head to Luna with a plan. He's going to hold Vaseloth, then orders her to pack everyone up and flee, calling Faye and the sky dragons from the Divine Dragon Empire to bring help. Luna fights back, calling his move reckless and warning him his body and magic are already running on fumes. She grabs his heart and pushes one message through: comrades, lives come first. Their eyes lock for a split second, and in that quiet pause, they somehow both understand each other perfectly. Raid drops onto Luna's back, and right from nearby Gerard rumbles out, "I understand." He even leans in and speaks to Luna straight up, asking if she really means that. Then he tells her, if this is Raid's call, believing in him becomes your job too. She begged him, but Raid didn't budge. Then chains of magic burst from the ground, snapping into a massive net, and Raid roared, "Luna, now," because his dragon-binding sealing technique was already in motion. Obeying his command, she and the other dragons shot into the sky, ripping the battlefield out of sight, and as they soared away, her last thought was a raw, desperate plea that he wouldn't die. With the dragons finally kept at bay, Raid stood on the web of chains and locked eyes with his opponent. Vasil snapped with anger, a demon's fist clenched around fresh blood, his voice strained and furious. Raid couldn't shake how maddening it was that someone so nothing like Mikazuchi ended up being the one to bring down the Demon King. Rage surged through Vassal as he dropped into a crouch, demanding more flesh and roaring for Raid to be his sacrifice. Raid didn't blink, braced up, and dared him to come. He shot across the gap like lightning, smashing Raid across the face with a brutal backhand, so hard Raid's head snapped back with a sharp grunt. The strike slammed into him and staggered his feet, and right in that split second of weakness, he clocked the perfect opening in Vasal's huge frame. He spotted the opening and snapped into motion. Raid lunged forward with his sword, refusing to let his opponent slip away, while Vasal stared at the counterattack, praying Raid could still hold the line from that compromised spot. His blade was just a feint, then Raid snapped into the Divine Dragon Empire style, the Dragon Wing waltz, and slammed Vasal's abdomen with his armored fist. The hit landed and Dread sank in. The power he'd inherited from Mikazuchi was gone for good. The strike hit dead on, but Vasal barely twitched. His dark eyes narrowed as the sealing technique's chains snapped around his feet, quietly siphoning his magic. He scoffed at the attempt, brushing aside Raid's effort as nothing but petty tricks from the guy who actually defeated the Demon King. Then he snapped, wondering why his own body, the one that paid everything to gain power, was still getting held back, while across from him Raid clenched his resolve, knowing he couldn't just take the demon's head. Raid went on a rant, saying Vassal had just dropped humanity's strongest weapon, and the demon swordsman snapped his eyes shut in suspicion, wondering what in the world that even meant. He countered with a roar that shook his own body, because it's Rishengri-la, forged and perfected for hundreds of years using Divine Dragon Empire sword techniques, the true strongest weapon, and then he snapped forward, blade first, crashing into them as the clash exploded. He shoved the demon's blade aside, snapped that Vasal was wrong, then slammed his foot to restart the magical chains, claiming that right now, he'd show the world humanity's true strongest weapon. He slapped his hand to his chest and swore it to be true. The heart is the strongest weapon. He flashed back to every time someone else saved him, those lifelines powering him to fight back and help them too. That's what Vasal lost. His heart, his bond, the connection that held everything together. He kept railing on Vasal, yelling that he'd stabbed his comrades in his homeland in the back just to sharpen his skills, swapping humanity's greatest weapon for demonic power, until all that was left inside him was a brutal, hollow obsession. Beating Mikazuchi. With his conviction rock solid, he lifted his sword again, ready to strike. He came barreling and swinging, but Vassal swatted every strike aside with effortless ease. The impact still tore through the air like a shockwave, cutting Raid's cheek as blood flared, and the demon laughed, goading him to prove that so-called strongest weapon right in front of his own eyes. He seized the moment, grinning as he mocked Raid for being unable to break through, then flashed a wicked smile and vowed to show his strength, until every last spark in Raid's will to revive got crushed. As the demon's blade bore down on him, Raid panicked and screamed for demon-destroying protection, thrusting his power forward as a thin burst of light flared between them. Vasil barely blinked at the light's attempt. He smirked right through it. He praised Raid's skill as an Imperial Dragon Knight, then swore that before Raid's power even mattered, his own body would shatter first. He announces his reckless plan. Before he even hits the ground, he'll obliterate Vasil with the power of the heart, the one the demon threw away. Vasil shoots back with a cold stare and accepts the challenge. As they crash through the sky, Vasil snatches Raid's arm and barks, "Why would you unleash Raiden's power if your real move was just to wipe us both out with that giant fall from your big, stupid height?" The reason for that deadly close quarters move hits like a punch when Raid slams his blade deep into Vasil's back. The demon roars, finally clocking that this was Raid's goal from the very beginning, an airtight plan to bring down one of the four heavenly kings. Then Vasil erupts with a mocking laugh and blasts Raid flying, screaming that no mere human could possibly survive such a sham. Sent hurtling toward the ground, Raid jolts Vasil in his mind, demanding he hasn't forgotten humanity's deadliest weapon, because the heart, he believes, can cross every species and still let you care. Like the universe had a cue, a huge great white dragon dives up from below and snatches him out of the air, and from somewhere high above, Vasil stares on as Luna screams Raid's name. He scrambles on her back in safety, eyes locking onto Luna with pure relief, thanking her for saving him and swearing he'll never let her slip away again. He stares out, then whips his gaze to the horizon. There it is, a squadron of dragons charging straight at them. He shouts, asking whoever said it was only Luna coming to help. And way up high, Vasil is stunned, staring in disbelief as he tries to wrap his head around how an ancient dragon with drained magical power could reach them that fast. The dragons closing in aren't monsters at all. It's Faye and Gerard charging headfirst with them, shouting to Raid that they're here to help and that he can step back. Gerard unleashes a brutal roar, calling every last dragon to join the wrecking force as they hammer the demon to pieces. They crowd together and swear their power to their proud ally, the Imperial Dragon Knight, reborn in their world, and up in the sky, the shaken Vasil finally realizes the troops that just arrived are sky dragons. He roars and his eyes twist into black pits of pure fury. Then the Heavenly King rips through the moment and declares it's time to show those dragons what he's made of. Far away, Raid stands ready, drenched in a blinding, brilliant aura. The dragons snap together and unleash one crushing wave of power. Then, as that blinding beam rockets toward Vasil, Raid roars that he's a traitor to the divine dragon empire, a knight who ditched his master and his dragon brothers. He screams that Vasil will now be destroyed by the wrath he abandoned, and in the blast, Vasil can only stare in disbelief, wondering if the sky dragons he used to fight beside are really the ones ending him. A crushing tidal wave of draconic power slams into him, then his body just unravels, dissolving into scorching, white-hot light. Seeing that fallen knight rip straight through Mikazuchi's spectral soul, and deep sorrow floods his form, his face tightening as he mutters through the pain, remembering he once had friends who truly understood him, and the dragon mouths he loved like treasure. He's left staring at one brutal truth. Now all that's left is regret, because the final scraps of that forgotten soul crumbled to dust right there at the water's edge. After the great battle, a gigantic smoking crater sits where the final blow landed, and the ancient power's name, *Mikazuchi***, hangs in the quiet air like a curse. The dead stillness gets ripped apart when every assembled dragon unleashes a thundercrack roar in perfect unison, their victory screams echoing across the wrecked landscape. Lord Luna Raid watches as she swings her head toward him, her voice trembling with worry as she calls out the bruises and battered state he's left in after the fight. She shoots him a tired, shaky smile, apologizes for dragging worry into his life, and then through it all, he hears how genuinely grateful he is for her help. The Mikazuchi's spectral form flickers into existence, and she's basically saying, "Sure, we'll talk, but first, let's soak in this victory." Raid stares on, thrown off for a beat. Luna then whips the other dragons around with a proud grin, insisting this massive win is all thanks to her partner, Raid. Then Gerard and Faye lead the charge as the whole crowd erupts in cheers, shouting that he's the new Raid the Dragon Tamer and the next Imperial Dragon Knight. They launch into the skies. She rises to deliver a solemn proclamation, and suddenly every dragon alive swears their divine protection to the brand new Imperial Dragon Knight. Raid is left utterly stunned as her words hit like a weight, especially with the Imperial Dragon Knight standing behind her, because that true meaning doesn't come lightly. Days drag on, and about 10 days later, the whole world starts to shift and change. After the Demon King finally fell, monsters packed it in, and the whole world calmed down, while the divine dragon empire and its neighbors started breathing easy again, as dragons soared freely overhead and towns returned to peace. In this quiet clearing, Luna and the other dragons finally breathe easy. Most of their bruises have faded, and they rest as human caretakers carefully nurse them back to strength. In a quiet room, Roanna is glued to her book when she suddenly shouts for help, because right outside, a terrible pain is closing in on her. The sound came from Raid, sprawled in bed, and Rona burst to his side, pushing past worry as she scolded him for trying to move, reminding him he'd been stuck in bed for 3 whole days. He thanked her for caring and asked if she'd gotten bored, and Rona lit up, lifting her book like a trophy. She wasn't bored one bit, because she'd been swallowed by stories about the gods. Rona can't believe she's into mythology, so she spills it. Sure, the divine dragon empire Lazaria has tales about gods forging races and shaping the world, but the cat spirit tribe's legends line up with that same idea, even if the dragon country's versions are totally different. Her bright smile slips away the second she glances down at the book, and her face turns stone serious as she starts telling the story, long, long ago. He plunges them into a world where only gods exist, wild, primeval landscapes and ancient ruins crumbling beneath time itself. Back in those ancient days, a wingman lies sprawled and beaten on scorched ground, and then, right as a booming, clawed foot slams down beside him, someone's voice snaps, asking just how far he's willing to go. A brutal, power-crazed dragon rips open the sky and hurls a devastating blast of energy, so fierce it splits the ground right in front of them. The wreckage is traced back to a sharp-eared, dark-haired man smirking like he owns the sky, and the beaten-winged fighter snaps back, screaming that even if Noriris tears everything apart, his cravings will never be satisfied, calling him the demon god Noriris. But Noriris doesn't even flinch, calmly promising that his desires will be met. He bursts out with his grand plan, saying all of this chaos was just a setup, and then he dares his real opponent. If you finally show your face, the person he adores will be dragged into the spotlight too. His eyes lock onto 2 dragons. One is the red dragon Gerard. Nariris steps toward the other, a regal, light-scaled giant, and greets him like an old friend, the divine dragon Edelgreppas, the ancestor of all dragons. Then Nariris drops the truth. This whole scheme was meant for her from the very beginning. He barreled into his former ally and demanded answers. Why would you turn on me and back the dragon? He shoved their shared law in their face, screaming that the weak were never meant to be anything but stepping stones for the strong. His face crumpled with pain as he demanded, honestly and hurt to the core, why they'd all turn on him. His eyes snapped to the divine dragon, Edelgreppas, and he greeted him like an old friend, while the mighty beast's eyes narrowed in response. Edelgrapes leaned in and confessed that their change of heart wasn't an accident. They finally saw how evil their actions were, because they'd been operating without love. Nariris laughed it off as pure foolishness, doubting anyone could stake the divine race's future on something so shaky. Then he snapped back, no, it's love that can pull off that miracle. Just as the tension snapped, Nariris burst out that he'd been waiting for this second. Then the dragon roared, slammed its will down, and wouldn't let him pass. Right now, Roanna read the book's last lines, and her heart shattered at a gut-punching truth, a mother choosing to die with her child instead of leaving them behind. Raid, half listening from his bed, muttered that he'd never heard a tale about the ancestors of the ancient dragons before, and the way it was described felt so vivid it might as well have been a real piece of history. Roanna shut the book with a snap and declared the tale was done, then asked what came next, only for Luna's voice to cut in from the doorway, wondering if Raid was finally behaving. Rona practically lit up when she arrived. She squealed that she and Mararia were about to bake catnip bread, then waved her off, and just as the room felt lighter, Luna stepped in, grinning at Raid as she held up a clean white cloth. She asks how bad he's hurt, and Ray breaks it down. Because of her and everyone else's care, he's already bounced back a ton, but his internal organs are still healing. He admits he never saw that brutal magical backlash coming, and the divine dragon imperial sword is off limits for now. He jerks back in shock when Luna hands him the sword he's been looking for, re-eaten, and the truth hits hard. He thought it was already back with the cat spirit tribe at Shangri-La. Luna says nope, it was shipped straight from the tribe's leader in Mararia, and because this blade originally belonged to the imperial dragon knight, Mikazuchi, they're convinced it belongs in the hands of his descendant, Raid. Then Luna leans in with one last wish. Hopefully he won't have to draw it again, because after this, there are no more enemies. She rewrites her own words on the spot and slides the blade back into its sheath, then decides to hang on to it for now, because she's convinced Raid will just push himself way too hard if he gets his hands on it this soon. He gives a small, knowing smile and tells her he's got it. Once his body's fully healed, he'll take it back, even though he knows she's still furious about what happened. Yeah, he pushed himself way too hard. He lets out a huge yawn, shoots Luna an apologetic look, then decides he's not done. he grabs another nab and tugs the covers up over himself. Before he even gets a chance to drop onto the bed, she cuts in with a bold idea. How about this? She offers her lap like it's the only safe landing spot, and Raid snaps his gaze up, eyes blown wide in pure shock. Shock hit him hard as he finally processed that unexpected offer. He drops his head down, and the first thing that hits him is just how ridiculously soft it feels. Just a second later it hits him, he's flustered, and he instantly recognizes that soft, gentle scent. It's Luna's. He looks up and there she is, smiling down at him, warmth pouring from her face as he settles comfortably on her lap. She leans over and stares down at him, a sweet blush flooding her cheeks as she whispers his name like it's the most precious secret in the world. She shoots him a worried glance and asks if her legs will go numb, then tells him not to push her too hard. She's got this. He tries to worry, but she waves it off fast, saying she wants to do it for him, so it's totally okay. And then she leans in with a grin. Partners are always together, no matter what. She flashes him a gentle smile and asks for his yes, and he can only nod along and agree. In that calm, quiet instant, neither of them had a clue what was coming next, because the days of brutal mortal combat about to ignite weren't just a fight, they were the fateful meeting that would rewrite their destinies forever. As he tries to rest, a strange feeling hits him. Then, from somewhere far away, a voice calls his name, echoing inside his head as he jerks up, stunned like, "Who are you?" On a bright morning, a voice shouts, "Raid," from the other side of a locked door, and when he swings it open, a calm smile spreads across his face as he takes one look at the world and declares it's another perfect day. Ray blinks in his sleepwear, meets the warm greeting with a nod, and promises, "I'll get ready, I'll be right there," as he slips into action. A year has flown by since the Demon Clan battle, and while that time stretches on, the Dragon Kingdom is slowly transforming. So from a balcony, he and Luna stare down at a roaring port where dragons glide and swim freely in the water. Downstairs, Roanna beams and calls Raid Big Brother, wishing him a good morning. Right next to her, Milphie slips in a soft greeting of her own as they carry out a basket packed with freshly baked bread. He thanks them both for the meal, and Luna immediately steps in, offering to handle the cleanup afterward. Milphie grabs the chance and accepts her help with real gratitude. From the cat spirit tribe, she cradles her baby and blurts an apology for having everyone's preparing the food. Then Roanna cuts in, urging her to eat right now. Her stomach growls and Raid declares, "All right, it's time, we're starting the meal." She puffs out her chest with raw pride, swears it's totally fine, and declares, loud and proud, that she's officially the big sister of the whole cat spirit clan. With everything finally quiet and the monsters still lurking, she's told me her people have started pouring back to their homeland to rebuild from the ground up, and now she's fired up, ready to throw herself into her own part of the fight. Words make Raid think twice, stay careful, don't gamble, because families with infants and pregnant moms are still back in the Dragon Kingdom, and everyone with some free time is busy pitching in, like cooking meals, and then it hits him. It's crazy that he used to be treasured by his own parents just like this. Elsewhere, Rue bursts into the room, stretches like a sunrise, and asks Milphie for breakfast. Milphie, used to this routine, nods and says yes, but warns Rue she'll have to help clean up later. She loudly rants that her breakfast portion is way too small, and Raid clocks it all, remembering how Milphie used to hate Rue so badly she'd attack her on sight. The wild part. They're actually chatting like normal people now, which means Rue's infamous rage must have finally cooled off. Her complaint gets shut down hard. Luna cuts her off with a cold swipe of "It's all in your head," and when Rue freezes in embarrassment, she immediately snaps, shouting that it's not her imagination, yanking herself out of that calm mask in an instant. He strides in and tells Luna they're headed straight for the center of the Dragon Kingdom today, because sure, they'd usually be tending the ancient dragons or hauling materials, but not this time, not with today's agenda. They unveil the truth. This is the day of a massive ceremony. So Raid, Iru, Rona, and Luna in her real dragon form stride with a booming procession of dragons toward a giant, open battlefield. When Raid shows up, he spots the whole crowd already gathered, and Alburn, the Dragon King, steps forward to announce it's time to kick off the Dragon Vein ceremony. He roars for everyone there to pray to their ancestor, the divine dragon Edel Grylus, and in total unison, every dragon in the host bows their heads in reverent silence. The sheer size of this event knocks the breath out of you. Raid can only stand there and stare, watching so many terrifying powers kneel in perfect unison. Quietly he repeats the name he heard at Elgrylus, and the truth hits hard. This is the legendary divine dragon, the one every ancient dragon bows to. His mind keeps spinning back to the one truth that won't let go. This very person once fought the Demon King side by side with his ancestor, Mikazuchi. It was Edel Grylus who handed Lee Eden the holy sword of the divine dragon, and with it came the demon annihilation blessing. When the prayer finally ends, he lets the others breathe again and tells them they're safe to relax. As the dragons finally start to move, Raid's eyes snap to something no human should ever see right in front of him. One massive horn, rising from the earth like it's carved from the impossible. He gaped at the colossal relic, and when he saw how huge the horn was, he knew the divine dragon's body had to dwarf every ancient dragon out there. He realized this was a chunk that shattered off during the Demon King's fight, and the Dragon Vein ceremony, powered by the horn, only happens once every few centuries. Since this was his first time seeing it, he blurted out a question about how they planned to use it. Raid watched as the horn ignited and blasted a blazing pillar of light straight into the heavens, and the Dragon King, Alburn, stood before the relic with his mouth hanging open in pure awe. The beam of light kept blasting upward, a blazing beacon that tore straight through the clouds. Then it clicked, this was the Dragon Vein ceremony. The ancient dragons had been working magic non-stop just to stay alive, and now the horn was here to gulp up the massive magical energy pouring through the dragon veins across the whole kingdom. He stood shoulder to shoulder with Roanna and Milfi, staring at the breathtaking sight. Then he learned the truth. Every few centuries, when the dragon veins grow weak, the reigning Dragon King launches this ceremony to blast them back to life. Once the brilliant light finally faded, Luna, still in her dragon form, snapped, "Don't move yet," telling him there was more on the way, and as he stared at her, baffled, Faye and Gerard kept their eyes locked on the sky, waiting for what came next. He got it, so why were they still frozen in place? Luna jumped in and said, "Humans sometimes get blessed with abilities from the heavens, and this ceremony ends with the dragon's final gift from the skies." Then a brilliant object tore out of the sky, screaming straight for their spot. Gerard erupted, roaring for everyone to scramble back. The object crashed into the ground in a blinding flash, blasting up a cloud of dust and yanking the nearby dragons backward as they stumbled. From the crater carved by that brutal impact, dust finally starts to settle, and there, a figure emerges. Raid snaps his shields up, stares in stunned disbelief, and his words fall apart as his mind struggles to process what he's seeing. That thing falling from the heavens isn't a thing at all, it's a person. A young girl, curled up like she's asleep, completely unharmed, face calm as peace, and she's the gift meant for the dragons. Her sudden arrival ripples panic and wonder through the gathered dragons. Roanna shouts for Luna and Gerard, because the instant she senses the sleeping girl's overwhelming power, every other dragon starts to squirm and stir restlessly. Right when they hesitate, the Dragon King, Albert, drops down from the skies with a low, grumbling warning, telling them, "Don't come near that girl recklessly," and making it clear she isn't just a person at all, she's a divine being. Albert's ancient eyes lock onto her, reading secrets nobody else can see. He feels the sheer mountain of magic crammed into her tiny frame, and that shocking truth starts to hit him like a lightning strike. His thoughts snapped into certainty, then he blurted out a bold declaration that left everyone frozen, confirming his suspicions loud and clear. The girl was a divine being. That single word hangs in the air, and boom, every other dragon erupts in shocked whispers, trying to make sense of it, whether she's the real deal or just pretending to be a god. A fall like this has never happened before, not since the days of the great divine dragon, and now they can't stop asking what it means. What kind of kingdom's gift could ever come from something like this? In the middle of all that chaos, Luna snaps into action and whips around to Raid, begging him. She even apologizes for the trouble, to rush the divine girl straight to the Cat Spirit Tribe's village for safekeeping, because she has to sprint to her superiors right now. Hearing how serious this is, Raid agrees instantly, no questions. He drops to his knees beside the unconscious girl, and when he locks eyes with her face, recognition flickers across him like a spark. Luna asks if he's okay, and he answers, quiet, steady, and absolutely no. His cryptic reply hangs in the air while the Cat Spirit Tribe's village carries on like nothing's coming. Then two villagers trade whispers on a wooden platform, one insisting there's nothing odd to report. In a quiet room, a divine girl lies unconscious on the bed, while Luna, wearing her elven form, carefully tends to her, and Raid sits nearby in a chair, watching in silence as the girl's hand twitches, sending out a tiny spark of light. As they watch her, Luna can't help but gasp in awe. How could something divine with magic this massive even exist? Raid, though, gets uneasy fast, wondering why someone at her level would be out cold, and then, the real mind-bender, why a god fell from the sky in the first place. He sinks into thought and drags up every legend he's ever heard, stories of the divine whispered across the world, worshipped like creator gods with power so massive they can remake the land and forge countless new races. That makes this moment feel even bigger, because a divine being actually drops into the Dragon Kingdom, and the gift they bring is on a scale nobody's ever seen. Keeping watch over the sleeping girl, Raid whispers a desperate hope that her fall will be calm, while Luna stays stone quiet, worry carved all over her face. He whips his head toward Luna, seeing the worry in her eyes, and admits her fear makes total sense, because a divine being just crashed from the sky right when the Dragon Kingdom finally tasted peace. Then he leans in, drops the real reason, and confesses there's another thought gnawing at him, something he can't stop wondering about. His mind snaps back to a dream. He can't pin down the face or voice of the person inside it. Then it hits him. That wasn't some random fantasy, it was Mikazuchi's memory, the one who blessed him with magic, swordsmanship, and the clan's secrets right after he crushed Vezel. In that inherited memory, a tiny piece of Mikazuchi's real life spills into him. He sees a face for a blink, and it looks shockingly like the kid sleeping right in front of him, and it all clicks. The woman from his dream and this girl are eerily alike. That sudden implication slammed into him. His eyes blew wide with shock as he finally felt the link to Mikazuchi's memories snap into place. He stares back at the girl again and his mind races. What if this isn't just luck, but karma, a hidden thread, or destiny stretching all the way back to Mikazuchi's era, tangled with that brutal war against the Demon King and his clan? She listened as Iru told her why she was there, and she confessed she ditched the Dragon Vein ceremony, right when a strange power hit her and dragged her into investigating. And with a worried look on her face, Ray decided they'd just have to ask the girl what happened the moment she woke up. As he stood over it, Era snapped, demanding to know who the girl was, and insisted her magic felt on par with the Divine Dragon Emperor's sword. She even floated the wild idea that the girl might be connected to the Divine Dragon, then shut it down on the spot. Ray nodded and said Era's first instinct was a solid guess, but it ended up being totally wrong. She chewed on this new truth, hand on her chin, staring like the answer might bite. Iru couldn't wrap her head around it, because no real divine being should be dropping into their world in this age. Then her mind latched onto the divine dragon's horn, remembering, clear as day, how she'd watched it snap off with her own eyes in the Dragon Kingdom. You could basically bet her fall happened because of that horn, because long ago, people used god-tied relics like this to drag those divine beings straight into the mortal world. Ray thought it over and a small smile tugged at his lips. He could barely believe there used to be a time when people could just summon gods, yet the moment a totally different one showed up, it still made zero sense. Raid's thoughts were cut off when Rona finally got it. She said she'd step out for a bit and warned him, flat out, not to even dream of leaving the Dragon Kingdom until the girl woke up. Panic rising, Raid swore he wasn't planning anything big. He just wanted distance from that divine thing, and told Rona not to look at him like he was hiding something. Their shouting died instantly under a gentle sound, then the divine girl's eyes fluttered wide open. Iru jerked back, gasped, and clapped a hand over her mouth as she realized the girl was awake. She dragged herself upright, and the whole room fell silent, except for the soft whisper of bedsheets as the divine finally woke up. Her eyes cut across the room and snagged on the shocked faces of Raid, Luna, and Iru. Then the whole place seemed to freeze as the newly awakened girl just stared right back, unblinking. Her eyes snapped open, confusion flooding her face, and she shot up to ask, "Where am I?" Raid stepped forward to tell her she was in the Dragon Kingdom, the ancient dragon's home, and when she heard the name, she mouthed it under her breath, her expression impossible to read. Now she sat bolt upright in bed, with Raid, Luna, and Iru clustered around her, and after a sharp pause she blurted a question that froze everyone. What's an ancient dragon? The way she said it made one thing painfully clear. The girl they thought was divine had amnesia. In a quiet room, the light-haired girl jerks upright on her bed, staring between Raid and Luna like they're a mystery, and she blurts out, "Who are you?" leaving Raid stumbling in shock. Then it hits him, this new burning question, who is she? Raid snaps to attention when he realizes she's got amnesia, and suddenly he can't corner her for answers, so he makes his move, introductions first. Raid Drayson steps in and introduces himself, then points to Luna and Iru as the three of them face the girl. He tells her straight up that basically she's a divine race god, and her sudden arrival totally blindsided them all. The girl stays calm and agrees. Raid let out a huge breath of relief, so at least they could finally talk. Then he turned to Luna and told her, "Don't be so formal with me," because every time she did, it made it harder for him to even ask for what he needed. The girl lets it all sink in, then taps her chin, lost in thought. "So, what do I call myself? I don't even know my own name." Raid hears her out, instantly getting what she's up against. She explains that she needs a name to use until her memories come back, and since Raid was the one who figured everything out and helped her, she asks him to pick a good name. Raid freezes, stunned by how huge that responsibility really is. Her eyes lit up with pure hope as she waited, hanging on his answer like her whole heart depended on it. That hopeful stare hits him like lightning. He freezes, then fights through the nerves, steals his resolve, points straight ahead and declares, "That's it, I've chosen her name." It makes it clear her name is Kalmia. She mouths it under her breath, and a shy blush blooms across her cheeks as the word sinks into her head. Kamiya's face lights up with pure delight. She gushes that it has a beautiful ring to it and that it's the perfect name. And when Raid sees how happy she is, he steps in and promises to introduce her to everyone else who's living across the dragon nations. Right when he was about to blurt out the name he'd been thinking of, Kamiya suddenly surfaced in his head. Raid's heart pounded, wondering if it clawed its way in from Mikazuchi's memories, like the Imperial Dragon Knight already knew this girl. He knew that had to be her real name, but it only shattered the silence into a storm of questions. What did it mean? Why did she show up in Dragon Nation? How did she tie to his dream? And worst of all, why had she been stripped of her memories? People couldn't stop wondering how Mikazuchi was involved, but right now Kiyomiya had to handle something bigger. She went straight around the Dragon Nation, greeting everyone in sight. The Dragon King had her covered. She'd stay until her memories came back, and sure, the cat spirit tribe kept trying to help, but Kiyomiya just waved them off politely like, not yet. As they walked, she suddenly snapped her gaze to the ground. There, blazing beneath her feet, sprawled a massive glowing fissure. Her breath caught as she realized it wasn't just cracks, it was an endless surge of mana, roaring like an underground river. Faye realized something wild. Her senses were razor sharp, because mana usually stays hidden unless magic circles or spells drag it into the open. Even after Kiyomiya forgot her divine power, her eyes still tracked mana like a map, reading every flicker of it perfectly. And right as they burst out of the passage, Mikazuchi spotted them coming. Their tour threw them straight into the lair of another nation's mightiest dragons, the great red dragon, Gerard. He marched up to Kamiya and called her Divine One, then introduced himself like a king announcing his reign. Kamiya answered politely, and Raid could barely hide his quiet amusement. He just blurts out why he showed up out of nowhere. Once he heard a visitor from the divine race had arrived, he figured he'd swoop her around the dragon nation from the sky, and the second he saw his offer, his face lit up and I couldn't wait to accept. The dragon dropped to the ground and beckoned her up, then Roanna and Milfi blurted out their fears. Gerard's flying was famous for being bone-jarring, and Kamiya would crash for sure, leaving Kamiya frozen in stunned silence. Before she could even finish her decision, another voice crashed into the moment, Luna, bursting in her real dragon form. Kamiya stared at the dragon princess, eyes shining, praising how cute she was as a human, but as a dragon she stood gallant and slender, pure royalty. Pride surged through Luna's chest. Getting that kind of praise from the divine race felt like an honor. Spotting her opening, Luna snapped into action. She told Raid to climb onto her back first, then haul Kamiya up because nobody was getting left behind, and Gyurar even swore he'd soar right beside them as their escort. Raid obeyed instantly and swung himself onto the dragon's massive back with Countcha right beside him. So she wouldn't get sliced by those razor-sharp scales, he pressed his gloved hand out, and she stared at him for a heartbeat, surprise sparking in her eyes before she took it. A young girl watches, worry flickering in her eyes, as Raid, already perched on Luna's back, leans forward and asks if the dragon's ready. Luna snaps back that she's more than ready, no doubt. Then Raid shouts that they're leaving, and Luna's massive wings explode into motion. A sudden surge yanks a grimace across her face, and Luna rockets into the air. Then they snap into formation with the other dragons, blasting through the clouds like a storm. As they level off, he whips around to look back at Kamiya, now clinging to him from behind, and with a bright grin he points out how beautiful the clear sky is, but she only lets out a strained sound in reply, eyes shut tight. Her fear spikes as she leans over and looks down. She sees the dizzying drop they're flying over, with the ground far below like a bottomless chasm, and panic screams in her head. It's way too high. In her panic, she clamps herself tight to his back, shaking hard as if the ground beneath her is spinning, and that's when he realizes she's terrified of heights. Luna hears the panic in her voice and rushes in, promising to drop down and warning Kamiya not to strain herself. But Kamiya fights back, trembling and scared yet refusing to back down, insisting that since Raid dragged her all the way here, she'll adapt. Gerard's voice snaps into the chat, warning them not to push too hard, and Luna nods right away, calling Kamiya goddess, and they decide to carry on for now, exactly the way she wants, as the dragons keep soaring across the sky. With renewed grit, the Count's expression turns stone hard. She clenches her fists and yanks at Raid's tunic with all she's got, knuckles going white from sheer force. Seconds later, her voice cuts through the air and screams his name. Then she urges him to look, grinning as she finally sees clearly, saying the view is gorgeous, but he's not loving it because she's clamping down on his stomach and he's struggling to get her to loosen her grip. A blush creeps up his face because the squeeze isn't just her arms anymore. Her whole body, even her chest, is pressed tight against his back. He tries to calm Kamiya, but she clings to him like a lifeline, screaming that she can't let go. She's sure she'll tumble away, while he swears no matter what happens, he'll never release her arms. As Luna shakes from above, she orders Kamiya to stop clinging so hard, but the moment Kamiya blurts back that Raid is her partner, she can't steady her nerves. Around them, the other dragons watch in silence, and one quietly points out that Raid is taking the hardest hit. The whole ordeal crushes Kamiya and she finally snaps. She can't handle any more. That flight stress hits like a truck. Kamiya's short time in the sky ends with her dropping limp, and Raid snatches her before she hits the ground. Right then and there, they decide. Kamiya is done riding with Raid, period. Luna watches the whole thing with that razor-sharp stare, like she's taking mental notes. Later, while they catch their breath, Luna, now fully in her elven form, slumps against Raid and mutters that if Kamiya has to be stuck with someone, it shouldn't be him. Raid brushes it off like it wasn't that bad, but Luna stays calm and firm, insisting the whole mess was completely out of her hands. Her sudden closeness hits him like a jolt. He snaps his head toward her, stunned, and blurts out her name, confused by what she's doing. She drops her gaze and admits she hasn't had much time lately to really settle in with them. Then she leans in and asks him straight, does it bother him being teammates with her? He hesitates and she keeps going anyway, admitting with a shaky laugh that her request is a little selfish. I'm the princess of dragons, she says, like it's a fact carved in stone. There's never been a thing I couldn't get. Then her hand settles gently on his chest as her voice spills out. She spills her feelings, admitting he's the one she's always wanted at her side. Only she couldn't have him until she finally escaped the divine dragon empire. Now that they're together, she craves nothing more than to be as close to him as she can. Even though she knows Kamiya doesn't feel the same way, her own desire still burns on. Her cheeks burned with heat as she met his eyes head-on and pleaded, "Can you forgive me for how selfish I was?" His face softens the second their eyes meet, and he assures her, no, her request isn't selfish at all. He says this is exactly what partners do, then promises he'll gladly take her feelings. With a shy blush, Luna looked up at him, heart pounding, still right there beside Faye after that emotional blow-up, and as she whispered his name, her gratitude poured out like it meant everything. After a while, they finally crashed back into that village building, right where Rona and Mararia had been waiting, and the whole group huddled together under a gloomy, cloud-choked sky. The place was a public bathhouse, with crystal-clear entrances split for men and women, and fresh towels stacked neatly inside. Raid finally decided to shake off the travel fatigue, diving into the hot, steaming bath outside and sinking into the water with a deep, relieved sigh. He sank into the steamy water, lost in thought about what to do next, and once his work was finished, he started weighing the idea of showing Kamiya the world beyond the Dragon Nation. Then a loud burst of noise smashed through the quiet, and he snapped around in shock. His thoughts got ripped apart the moment a familiar presence hit his senses. Kamiya was right there, and deja vu crashed over him so hard it felt like the moment was looping. She stood there totally nude, and Raid's stomach dropped when he realized her amnesia might have scrubbed away her shame too. He blurted her name, and she told him she couldn't read the sign at the entrance. Then she asked what hot spring this was, saying the catfolk had recommended it, and when he admitted he'd watched her see him strip, she just shrugged and copied him. Right as if to underline his thoughts, she let out a tiny sneeze, and Raid just stared, stunned that even with amnesia she couldn't seem to grasp basic common sense, like it was normal for the divine race. He snapped up fast, slung the towel around his waist, and told Kamiya to rinse herself with a bucket before she stepped in. He said hot springs are usually split by gender and even offered to go first so she could soak in peace, but Kamiya shot back right away, insisting that wouldn't be fair to him. She met his eyes with a hard stare and told him straight out. She'd always trusted his common sense, and if he started spouting weird stuff again, it would scare her. He stared at the weird situation, baffled that she was still grinning and letting him teach her here of all places. She figured it was safe as long as Luna or anyone didn't catch her. Then Kami yelped mid-splash, crying out that the water was blazing hot. They sank into the warm spring under the open sky, and she turned to him like it was a dare. "Hey, Raid, did I really live in the heavens?" He didn't hesitate. "Yeah," he said, and then he spilled the truth. Legends about it are everywhere, and she truly fell from the sky. She stared into the distance, lost in thought, like she was trying to figure out what kind of place this used to be. Her eyes snapped back to him, and she blurted out what his home life was like. Then it hit him. Behind that bright smile, the missing memories had to be tearing up her heart with pure, constant worry. He paused, weighing her question, and admitted that with his parents gone, and after everything that tore through his life, he couldn't feel much bond to his country anymore. Then he said it straight. The sky dragons are his family, and wherever they land is home. She leaned in, eyes sharp with sudden understanding. "I get it," she said, and then it hit him. Home isn't a place, it's where his family is. She pressed, "So the Dragon Nation is your real home?" He nodded and said yes, remembering how they welcomed him with open arms after he'd been cast out, and how every shared memory had stuck with him. Then he vowed it to the world. He loved the Dragon Nation, and it was home. A soft, warm smile spread across her face, blush blooming on her cheeks, and she told him, "That's wonderful, truly wonderful." She kept going, saying he loves everybody, and somehow everyone loves him back too. Raid froze at the sound of it, caught off guard, because love felt way too huge to be that simple, and then she leaned in, begging him to tell her the truth. Was it really real? Then it hit him: so many kinds of love, so many kinds of like, and his head filled with one perfect image of his found family. Roanna cracking up as the cat spirit tribe sprayed water at her, all of them laughing together while dragons streaked across the sky. Snapping out of his reverie, he met Kamiya's eyes and told her, "For now, make this place your home too." Kamiya smiled, her voice warm as she wished her homeland could be just as wonderful as the Dragon Nation. He promised her that everyone in the Dragon Nation would welcome her with open arms, calling them good people and good dragons, and then he urged her to dig deeper and truly get to know the place until she could feel at home, even if her memories never came back. Kamiya, hit by that kind of sincerity, went completely speechless for a moment. Her hesitation vanished into a glowing, determined grin. She was all in, praising the idea and vowing to fall even deeper for the Dragon Nation. The next day, she practically bounced with joy, stretching and begging Ray to show her more, even pushing past the border lines. It felt like pure, calm planning, until Luna later stumbled onto their shared bath and exploded with furious rage. In a maze of ancient, crumbling ruins, one lone figure sinks into quiet contemplation, and a crushing silence smothers the dead landscape. A faint grin flickers across his lips as he talks to someone we can't see. Then he blurts that he finally found them, and declares the time is here to decide the fate of their divine tribe. Right after he makes his declaration, he thrusts out a hand, and a thick, dark sludge starts pooling and crawling across the stone floor in front of him. A shadowy liquid churns up from the ground, hardening into a whole legion of silent, armored soldiers. Then their eyes ignite with a terrifying glow. He stared down his creations with a smug grin, declaring them a brand new race, closer to the gods than any human ever, meant to obey him alone, serving the demon gods without answering to anyone else. With the whole crowd watching, he steps up and officially names them Dark Angel. Dark energy snaps and crackles around him as he barks his first order, by the demon god Norlaris, master of all demons, and commands them to march to the land where the holy dragon's descendants dwell and drag back the god who's hiding there. He pours a slice of his power into them, then gives them the green light to wipe out anything that blocks them, even if they're going up against a god. A sinister grin cracks across his face as he throws in one chilling catch to their rampage. Of course, the target kid must be spared. Suddenly, a brutal stab of pain rips through him. He clamps both hands to his head, face twisting in pure agony as he starts to doubt his own strength, wondering if this is truly his limit while the hurt keeps raging on, even after all this time. Far from the demon god's throne, his brand new commander stands locked in place, rocking a confident smirk, because the harder the mission gets, the sweeter this victory becomes. They spin toward the legion of dark angels hanging behind them and shout the order to leave. Then, with a razor-sharp cry, the commander launches the charge as the demonic soldiers surge into the sky. Meanwhile, deep in a calm forest, Iru yelps in shock and snaps, "Don't grab my tail like that." Kamiya hangs her head, apologizing because she couldn't stop herself. She just had to see if it was really true. Iru gives a firm nod. "Yeah, it's real, a real demonic trait." From a short distance, Luna clocks how deep Kamiya is into Iru and tells Raid. Raid grins, saying Iru's been acting just like this since breakfast, like she totally missed her shot to tag along with them. At Gerard's push, he remembers today's plan, showing Kami the sights near the Dragon Nation, and as they head forward, he can't help but think they should stop at that gorgeous lake up ahead, imagining himself fishing there with Gerard and Faye. At the water's edge, Luna suddenly halts, then spots fresh footprints sinking into the lake, and her mind races with one chilling question: who or what left them there? Raid steps in, eyes locked on the footprints in that still muddy water, and he's quick to figure it out. Whoever messed with this lake hasn't gone far. Right beside him, Gerard rumbles a low, guttural growl. His eyes snap wide with sudden understanding as the bubbles start clawing up from the lake, and he yells for everyone to scatter away right now. Right on the heels of his cry, the heart of the lake detonates, water blasting upward in a violent eruption. From the boiling water, a monstrous, horse-like beast with fins and a whipping fishtail erupts, then screams like it's tearing the world apart. The crew freezes on the shore, and Raid's face drops as he realizes, in pure terror, that it's a kelpie. He studies the creature and realizes, oh wow, kelpies are magical beasts that crave pristine waters, and when he clocks that unnaturally swollen belly, the truth hits like a lightning strike. It came to this lake to give birth. That realization flips everything. Those fallen trees and muddy water weren't a fight at all. They were the creature's panic as it went into labor, screaming as it thrashed through a churning lake. The storm whips the sea into a violent frenzy, smashing a massive wave toward the shore where the group huddles, while the dragons rocket into the sky to snag the perfect view. From up above, Gerard warns them they can't afford to brawl with the young ladies right here. He shouts down to Raid, asking if he can drop a sealing art to pin the beast. Raid answers that he'll try. He lunges in and strikes the moment. Magical chains burst up from the water, snap tight around the kelpie, and pin it down hard as it screams in pure agony. He grits his teeth just to hold up the sealing art, staring in disbelief as the kelpie's insane strength still runs the whole show, because even tied down it can command the water. And suddenly he remembers what he'd heard. In territorial fights, these things have sparked flood after flood. Up on the heights, Luna stares down and realizes, if that thing goes on a rampage inside the Dragon Nation, disaster is coming fast. So she grits her teeth. There has to be a way to drive it out of their territory. As she gathers energy for a breath attack, Raid yells for her and Luna to hold back, because he knows that even a direct hit from an ancient dragon can smash through a monster as huge as the kelp. Just as Luna is about to unleash her attack, Kiamiya lunges into the space, begging for one chance to talk to the creature, swearing it's only terrified. Luna freezes, baffled, wondering how anyone could possibly reason with it. She shrugs and says, "Look, it's not like a kelpie could even understand our words, but I swear I can probably talk to it." Then she admits it's just a gut feeling, nothing more, nothing less. She whips her gaze to Dragon Luna and begs with fierce certainty. She swears she'll be the one to break the restrained kelpie free with her words. Raid turns to Luna and says, "For now we trust Kalmia, because she's from the divine tribe, she might be the one who can actually talk to monsters." Luna snaps back that this plan is suicide, warning that the kelpie would crush Kamia in a blink if it even trampled her. Ray nods hard, then swears they'll have everything ready to rush in and rescue her the second she's in trouble. He snaps his gaze to Kalmia and orders her to hold still. This is about to get rough. She's still reeling when he raises his power and seals the serpent, binding her with chains. Chains clamped down on Kamia and yanked her off the ground, dragging her into the sky. While Luna hung above, Raid leaned over and lowered her, dangling straight toward the lake. Kamia gasped and screamed his name, pleading, "Tell me there wasn't another way." Iri squints from afar at his divine tribe bait, and Raid snaps back that he warned Kamia it could get brutal. Iri insists this is the only move that'll keep her safe. The girl swings helplessly in front of the enraged kelpie, thrashing as it lashes out, and Raid slips in quietly to reassure a panicked Luna that they'll yank her back the second things turn dangerous. The beast explodes into a furious roar, and Kami, unshaken, meets it with a gentle smile, asking how it's feeling. She speaks with heart, admitting the creature wouldn't be in any mood at all if it were tied up like this, while Luna hangs back, her face softening into worried concern. She blurts out an apology for yanking it down so fast, begs it to calm the storm inside, and swears they're not trying to hurt it for no reason at all, while the kelpie stares back, its rage finally loosening its grip as it listens. She talks to the creature in a soft, steady voice, promising it that everything's safe and that no one nearby is out to hurt it. Then the kelpie's eye pops wide with shock, like it's tasting a feeling it's never felt before. She begs it to stay right where it is, because she's trying to hold on to this rare calm. She flashes a quick signal to the dragons overhead, and they circle back like, "Yep, ground control's got it," while the kelpie sinks down, whimpering softly as the magical chains keep it locked in place. With the creature's hoof trembling into the earth, her feet land right beside it, and in that instant the chains of light unravel into nothing. Huddled from a safe distance, flanked by Faye and Luna, Raid yells if it's safe to come closer, then turns to Count, and Count nods back, confirming everything's fine. She steps up to the kelpie, lays a calm hand on its head, and tells everyone what she just discovered. She says the creature's heart spoke to her, traveling from way out beyond to bring its young into the world, and it won't let anyone mess with that piece. He stares stunned as he realizes he can read a monster's heart. That's an insane power, and it makes him wonder if this, along with the way her voice sounded earlier, is exactly what the divine trials are. Kalmia's thoughts get yanked away the moment she feels a sharp change in the magic in the air, so she snaps her head back toward the kelpie, asking what's wrong as its body tightens and starts straining. The moment it hits, Raid snaps into action. He tells the others to back off because he knows that beast is moments from being born, and Kalmia clocks it too, staring with eyes blown wide in pure shock. She can't look away as the kelpie delivers a tiny, dark, serpentine baby, slithering into the world. After that tense clash, the mother kelpie nudges her newborn pup, which is sprawled weakly on the lake's shore. With a soft nuzzle, the mother showers her little one in love, and the tiny creature shakes its head, then fumbles up onto its feet for the very first time. Watching that soft, heartfelt moment, Kamia breaks into a smile, thinking, even monsters are living beings with real feelings. Raid nods quietly, fully agreeing. She whips around to Luna and says, "Let Mom and the baby stay at the lake for a bit." Then she leans in and orders Luna to keep those ancient dragons from bothering them, yet she swears she'll make an exception this time because it's a monster from another land and she'll tell her father later. Luna agrees instantly. Now that everything's settled, the crew starts heading out and Raid turns to Luna like, "Thank you, your help meant everything." Then he suggests they head back to the Dragon Nation. As they move, Kiyomiya shoots him a look, and her smile drops into something serious. Kiyomiya snaps, "Why are you staring at me like that?" And a soft sadness creeps into his voice as he wonders out loud whether her parents are the kind sort people. Raid freezes for a second, then, even with surprise on his face, he vows he knows they are. She tells him that watching the mother Kelpie's ferocious loyalty lit something up in her mind, and she can't stop thinking. If her own child had been snatched away, that creature would have rampaged straight into the Dragon Nation to drag them back. Her mind spirals inward and she can't stop questioning everything. Like, did her parents really throw her out of the celestial realm, and are they still frantically searching for her right now? And if the divine tribe is even half as strong as Raid claims, then they should have found her by now, no excuses. He sits back and listens, then speaks with calm patience, admitting that nobody knows what really brought her here, or even if the divine tribe can track her down at all, and he reminds her of how she first burst into the world, a falling star in free fall. He keeps talking and then drops the truth. If she'd slammed into the ground at that speed, she'd be dead even with divine tribe status, but she's still out cold, because someone's magic is cutting her fall, slowing her down so she won't crash. He wraps up his explanation, and points out that this kind of insane power could only be used by someone who loves her with their whole heart. Hearing that, a shy blush creeps across her cheeks. She gets it, and you can see pure joy light up her face as the idea hits. 3 months later, while Roanna is out on a walk, she spots a panting Kiyomiya and immediately tells her she's got to build up her stamina. As she finally catches her breath, Kiyomiya starts piecing together everything that's gone wrong. She's lived long in the Dragon Nation, but her memories still won't come back. And through it all, the Emperor's shadow keeps hanging over her, pushing Raid to dig for answers inside the Holy Dragon Empire. Her thoughts get ripped away the moment she sees the young Kelpie with Rona, then she exhales and admits it. Yeah, she was terrified about her amnesia, but watching the little one grow up safe fills her with real joy, and she's even pretty sure she saw it smile. She leans into this fresh view of life, forcing herself to think positive, because if the good memories won't come back, then the bad ones won't get the last word either. Then she turns to Milphie and asks, "Hey, fellow water spirit, don't you feel happy watching the Kelpie's child grow?" Milphie hesitates, confessing she doesn't know what she's supposed to feel, because monsters tore apart her homeland, and now even loving her own life feels impossible. Roanna nods along, fully backing Kami's point, because every kid deserves to grow up, no matter their race. With a grin, she adds that the baby is just adorable with it. Once the talk was over, Kamiya urged them to head back before the rain hit, and Rona instantly turned it into a race. Kamiya didn't hesitate and agreed right away. As her acceptance lands, Rona and Milphie light up with eager smiles, but Kamiya's face twists fast. She instantly starts regretting it, her stamina already sputtering. The woman snaps out of her thoughts when the mother Kelpie lets out a piercing scream, jerking its head up in pure alarm. Something is lurking just beneath the water's surface. That sudden shriek snaps Milphie, Kamiya, and Roanna into full alert mode, their faces flipping instantly into pure shock and uneasy fear. Once the shock starts to fade, dread slithers in. Kamiya can feel something wrong in the air. Roanna rushes to Milphie, asking if she's okay, and Milphie insists she's fine, but admits she can't shake the bad feeling about what's coming. She snaps into action, summoning a bow forged from pure light, and her will won't bend. Whatever shows up, she's bringing it down. Right from the sky, the thing behind their dread drops down. Dark, winged creatures start raining from above like a nightmare made real. As they crash down, my mind spins. She remembers the demon Raid from before, the one that even hit a guy named Aru, where monsters with magic strength matching an ancient dragon showed up. And still, the truth hits her like a punch. This can't be denied. She can't stop shaking, because if powers that colossal can move around this freely, then what does that even mean? Here's the truth, and it's way worse. It's not just a few of them, it's an entire winged army, and she freezes in terror as she realizes every single one of those creatures carries magic as strong as an ancient dragon or stronger. Kamiya stares at this crushing force, wondering if it's going after the mother Kelpie and her little one, but the weird part is their moves. No strike, no attack on the lake at all. Rona growls back because her instincts are screaming too, and she swears she can smell something foul pouring off these people. Kiyomiya approves it, then watches the dark figures veer, and terror hits him as he finally realizes they're the target. The dark angels are closing in on them. A sickly dark mist starts to crawl through the sky over the land of dragons, and Raid freezes in pure alarm, staring like, "What is that?" Luna stands right beside him, feels the truth of it instantly, and whispers that this thing reeks with massive, ominous magic. Spotting the danger right away, he slams the situation as a disaster and barks orders, yelling at the girls to evacuate to safety and warn everyone they meet, while telling the dragons to charge straight to the scene, then rushing off to notify the Dragon King and promising he'll catch up in moments. He gets the instructions and then boom, he launches into a sprint. One frantic thought takes over his mind. Lady Kamiya and the other two girls went into the forest and they still haven't come back. In the very same forest, danger already stalked them. Then a dark angel in black armor with shadow wings slammed down toward Rona, Milfi, and Kalmia. They crumpled together on the ground and Kalmia clung to a silent prayer, begging the safety of them all. Right before the creature can lunge, a storm of energy blasts rips through the air and zeroes in on where it's standing. Blaster shots slammed into the dark angel's armor, then crumbled uselessly on the dark plating, doing nothing to stop it from falling. Its charge stays unbroken. The winged warrior barrels down again, sword stretched forward, and from the ground Iru and Milfi just stare as it tears toward them at terrifying speed. Iru snaps into action, blurts Rona's name on instinct, and watches as Rona hurls a small object straight at the girl. Right as it catches her, the dark angel's sword slams down, and she snaps up a blazing wall of light with her hands to block the brutal hit. With their defense up, Iru drops softly onto the forest floor, jaw tight, eyes locked on the enemy, grim determination blazing. A winged dark angel slams down with a brutal splash, radiating pure menace. Kamiya and Rona get blasted backward by the impact, and Milfi crumples on the ground, exposed and helpless. Kamiya's eyes go wide, fear freezing her face, and she erupts, screaming Milfi's name. Frozen with terror, Kamiya can only stare, panic screaming inside her skull, "I have to help." But her body won't listen, trembling out of control as the dark angel's lone, glowing eye locks onto them from the shadows. Right next to her, Roanna screams out the fear choking them. Are they really going to die here with no answers? Then the dark figure surges closer, and hope sparks bright in Roanna's eyes because she realizes Milfi isn't down yet. She lets herself wonder about Milfi's secret feelings, how that young elf, even though she'd never admit it, has started to love the Dragon Nation like it's the real home she lost. That's why Milfi trains non-stop, day after day, because she'll do anything to guard her new home, and every soul inside it, so she never has to feel that kind of loss again. Fear fuels Roanna's stubborn hope, and that's why she smiles with unshakable conviction. Knowing Milfi will make it through, she calls out to her friend, her voice ringing with pure faith. Milfi claws her way up from the thrashing water, eyes blazing with pure resolve, and declares she's not done yet. Kamiya watches as her own hope snaps back, and Milfi makes a solemn vow. She'll protect her home and everyone she holds dear. With her vow, power explodes into the world. Straight from the depths behind her, a colossal water dragon surges up, all pure, furious churn. It cranes its head and rips a silent roar toward the dark angels diving down from the sky, blazing as a living shield born from her will to protect. At her command, the massive water spirit blasts forward and rockets into the air like a living missile, smashing through with sheer, bone-crushing force. It gapes open and unleashes a brutal, high-pressure torrent, water screaming through the air, smashing straight into the dark angels and blasting them apart in a soaking, crashing deluge. Watching her friends lay down an incredible display, his face lit up with hope, and she knew Milfi's power was absolutely legendary, because at this pace, victory was practically inevitable. From the sky, then the commander of the dark host only smirked, eyes narrowed as the colossal water spirit played out like some petty little magic trick to him. The water yanked and surged forward, roaring with raw power as it slammed into a sphere of dark energy. Boom, light exploded into a blinding flash and mist sprayed everywhere. As the spray burst down on her, Milfi froze in place, eyes wide and stunned at the crazy thing she'd just witnessed. She crumpled to her knees, choking out whispers of despair as she stared at the impossible. Every dark angel in that swarm stayed completely untouched, and their commander hovered above her, smirking as he praised her skill at pulling off the impossible by forcing so much water from mere surface dwellers. The sight hit Kalmia like a thunderclap, hope in her eyes vanished, and terror tore across her face as she stared in horrified shock. Her shock snapped into something worse, dreaded realization. When she locked eyes on the commander, her rare gift kicked in, letting her see the flow of magical energy like a living current, and the question hit hard. What the hell was that thing really doing? The truth slammed into her like a cold wave, because the thing standing there wasn't just shadow, it was total, bottomless darkness. She realized it wasn't a person at all, it was an absolute being wearing a human shell, and the sick reek of death clung to it like a curse. The commander snapped his attention to her and demanded, "Are you from the divine tribe?" Kamiya could barely move, her whole mind spun, stunned by the sheer existence of someone who wielded power like that. The Dark Angel commander locks eyes with Kalmia and smirks like they've already cracked the mystery, answering her silent question with a sharper one. How could she possibly be asking if they're from the divine tribe? Then with iron confidence they nod and declare it. Yes, they really are from the divine tribe, just like her. The commander juts out his hand, urging her to talk in the celestial realm, and before she can even answer, both of them surge upward on levitating magic, aiming to lift Kamia with them. Milfi refuses and roars in defiance, swearing they'll never drag her friend away, because she'll never lose her home and her companions again. Then she charges forward to cut them off. The commander snaps around on the spot, staff leveled as Milfi rockets in, and the elf girl's eyes blow wide, pure shock at how fast the counterattack lands. The commander lashes out with a swift, brutal hit, boom, a shockwave rips through the air, and Milfi's name explodes from Raid's mouth in pure panic. The impact slams her backward, and dark energy crackles where it hits like lightning in the dark. Kami and Rona just stand there, shattered, unable to move, staring in pure horror. She stares at her shaking hands, whispers a small apology, and the truth hits hard, that she can't do a thing. Right as she starts to drop, Raid bursts in and snatches her into his arms, bellowing her name, his face hardening when he realizes she threw her life on the line to shield her friends. And then in his grip a sword ignites, blazing with brilliant light. He shoves her behind him and strides up to the commander, lifting his glowing blade. Raid roars that it's his turn to shield everyone, then orders the commander to keep his distance from Elphic. The commander's composure cracks, his eyes bulge as he stares, jaw dropped at the sword in Raid's hand, and right behind him Milfi shouts his name, her voice bursting with relief and pure shock. As the standoff kicked off, the battle chaos doubled, winged monstrosities rained down, and Kamia snapped orders at full volume. She shoved an unseen ally to grab Milfi and Rona and get them out, insisting she'd stay put and handle things to help. Before those creatures could close in, Red Dragon Gerard ripped across the sky and slammed right into the swarm, roaring so loud the others could hear him clearly. Get out of here, leave these beasts to me. His Dragonblood allies' intervention bought him a heartbeat of peace, and his eyes tracked Gerard's aerial clash. Then his rival's voice sliced through the noise, demanding why he'd dare look away. He didn't wait for permission. Without a word, the commander exploded forward, lunging and roaring as he swung his staff in a huge arc. Raid snapped into action, lifting his glowing sword to meet it and block the strike. Their weapons slammed together and detonated into a burst of blinding light. His commander's staff crackled, then struck that blade's divine energy, and the shockwave jolted him so hard his whole body staggered. He planted his feet and stared ahead, wide-eyed with pure shock and iron resolve as power surged through his weapon. Both fighters froze in a brutal standoff, trading breath for breath, as the commander's weapon shook violently against the unshakable glow of the Raid swords. His eyes snapped to the blade in his hands, and then it hit him. That glowing wasn't random, it was Reedin, the sword's demon-slaying blessing, coming alive the moment it sensed the demon tribe. That shocking realization snapped Raid into action. He fired a direct question. So, is he really the god of the demon tribe? The commander grinned, confirmed it without hesitation, and said the name like a punchline. Yes, I am the demon god Nariris. What? Then he snapped his focus to the glowing blade, and Nariris instantly recognized its power as the holy dragon Edelgrepus. He couldn't help but feel shocked to run into something like that, but he smirked at Raid anyway, sneering that no matter what, Raid was still just human. As Raid digs through the demon god's words, Roanna blurts out her confusion. Why would their lord god hand a child to someone like him? Raid's stunned, and all he can do is hang on the words, Lord God. The title points straight to Triteria, the goddess who rules all gods, the undisputed queen everyone across the world recognizes. A chilling realization hits him. If Nariris really is going after Kamiya, then Triteria must have sent that child straight to the Dragon Nation, just to help her slip free from the demon god's clutches. Nariris snaps him out of his thoughts and calls him by his full title, the Dragon Knight and hero who crushed the Demon King, and the demon god instantly declares he's not letting Raid slip away, leaving the young man stunned. Nariris leans in and admits he already knew Raid would slaughter his precious demons during the Demon King's subjugation. Then he drops a cryptic bomb. Strange twists have trapped him in a rough spot, and Raid can't stop pressing him for answers. He brushes the question off, saying he doesn't have time to explain, and then dark energy explodes from him, ripping through the stairs as shocked eyes widen at the sheer power on display. Pressure crashes down on him. He knows that even a heartbeat of hesitation means certain annihilation. So he commits, unleashing his secret technique, Yadin Akami, knowing he only gets one shot. All he needs is a crack in the moment, just one instant to strike. Suddenly a thunderous roar tears through the air. Gerard barrels forward, shouting his name, and the dragon slams a huge dark object straight at the demon god, handing over the exact opening this Raid needs. Now he lunges in and screams, taking the moment. He lunges with his blade held high and detonates his ultimate, seeding Yara no Kami. He screams it out, pours every ounce of power into the swing, and charges straight at Noriris. But the deadly strike stops cold. Demon God just snatches the blade between his gloved fingers and freezes the whole attack with zero effort. He stands behind Raid, one hand lounging on a young man's shoulder like it owns the moment, while his blade stays perfectly in check, effortless and controlled, and with a calm, almost bored snap, he tells the dragon tamer to stop working himself to death. Those words slammed into Raid like lightning, his eyes bulged wide with pure, jaw-dropping shock as. With the fight locked in a steel-tight struggle, Raid strains while Nariris leans in, whispering so low it feels like it hits the soul. If an attack this brutal can bring down a god, then humanity would have already seized the divine throne. Suddenly, Raid finds himself a few steps away, like the pressure vanished overnight. He stares, stunned, realizing it wasn't just raw speed, Noriris had been right behind him the whole time. He refuses to back down, swearing he's not done yet, clutching his sword. He summons every ounce of power he forged on his journey and drives it into his next strike, punching clean through a dragon shield. With a thunderous cry, he charges ahead, swearing he'll protect everyone, then unleashes the Holy Dragon Empire's combat arts, blasting out a swift, arcane kick called the Dragon Wing Waltz. He swings his kick with everything he's got, but it gets slammed to a stop. Nariris just grabs his leg with one hand, looking totally unbothered, like he's amused by the whole thing. His eyes widened again, completely stunned and unable to believe what he was seeing. A sharp burst of power snaps out from Nariris' grip, and Ray yelps in pain. The demon god smirks and says he's played around long enough, now he's got to track that kid down. While he talks, he spots a tiny trickle of blood leaking from the corner of his mouth. He glances down at his hand, the one that caught the kick, now bruised and darkened, and for the first time, shock flashes across his face. He staggers and dark blood bursts from the corner of his eye, where that tiny hit just landed. Just as he's trying to catch his breath, Raid slams in with a relentless strike, kicks his staff aside, and when it's effortlessly deflected, he's left completely baffled. He jerks back, stunned, trying to piece together what just happened, because he's dead certain that demon-slaying blessing can only work through direct contact with his sword, so how did it even hit? It hits him all at once before he ever unleashes Yandere. He wraps himself in Raiden's magical power, and that's when it clicks, the demon-slaying blessing. Right then, Nariris lands on the same terrifying truth. He realizes the demon-slaying blessing slipped through Raid's body and into him, and that even this far contact is exactly why he's stuck like this now. He stares at Raid with ice-cold determination, convinced that one simple strike, just killing him, is the only way to end the nightmare. Raid leans in and fires back, asking if he knows Amikazuchi. Then he pushes harder, saying only that man's descendant can brandish a blade like this, and he demands, straight up, who Noriris is. Right before he can even finish, Narira blurs across the space and slams a flat hand to his chest. Raid's eyes blow wide with pure shock. He rips his power loose and orders Ray to shine like a star in the dark. Then a brutal blast erupts from his palm, blasting straight into the dragon tamer and swallowing him whole.